It might actually be the most derivative one of all. I mean, Christ, the same house.
Maybe so. But you forgot the first rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking origin stories and daddy issues. We're talking sleep tight, try not to bugger each other. And we're talking, I'll be closing the outer doors in 15 minutes. I sincerely hope you can make it. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking self-squid baby abortions.
Oh boy, the self-abortion, one of the two big talking points in this film.
I'm interested to know what the other talking point is, but yes,
I think you alluded to it last week in the outro.
Oh, okay, got it. Everyone, we are discussing Ridley Scott's alien prequel thing, Prometheus.
Prequel thing. It's a movie.
It sounds like I don't like this movie. I actually really do like this movie, and my watch yesterday was the most I have liked this movie out of all, like, 5 or 6 times that I've seen it.
Hey, there we go. And also, Trace, we should note that we are celebrating this movie on this here Alien Day, so look at the timing.
Well, and I think we really needed to do this because we did cover Alien Covenant, I want to say 2 years ago, and we were not kind to that movie. So I think we need to talk about the Alien prequel we do like and shower it with some love.
Also, check yourself. I like Alien Covenant. I just recognize it has its flaws.
It was kind of interesting. While rewatching this, I kept thinking about Alien Covenant because I forgot a lot about it. And I was like, well, where does it go? Oh, yeah, that's right. I actually wonder if I would like Covenant more if I double featured it with this film.
I think so, and I would encourage listeners to reach out and let us know if they feel the same, because I feel like there was a lot of groundwork that was carefully laid here for what would eventually happen in Covenant.
Yeah, it's just that Prometheus feels so dense and rich, and Alien Covenant feels like they just took a lot of narrative shortcuts, and that's what bothers me. But
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, go back and listen to that episode, everybody.
I know. I didn't want to go rewatch it for this. Blah. Okay, well, everyone, why don't we bring in some guests, because we have a lot to talk about with this movie. Our guests waiting in the wings are the hosts of My Bloody Judy, a horror podcast in which they, as self-proclaimed final faggots... Oh my god.
It just clicked for him.
Final faggots discuss all things horror. Please welcome to the stage Ian Carlos Crawford and Zachary Patton-Garcia.
Hello.
Hey.
Ooh.
We're excited to be here.
Welcome to Prometheus.
Ooh.
Zach, was that the first time we were introduced like that?
I think so.
I felt
weird, right?
Yeah.
We usually do the introducing. So it's a nice change up.
Well, welcome, boys. I'm curious, before we really dive into this, what is your connection to this film? Or I guess maybe the Alien franchise as a whole.
So I grew up in the Alien movies because my dad is obsessed with them.
Yes.
And I've told this story 10 times to Zach, but my mom will be like, oh, Alien and Predator remind me of my boys when they were kids. And I'm like, those weren't appropriate movies for me to see. I was terrified. And my parents will be like, no, we don't like horror. But I'm like, no, but those are horror movies. And they're like, no, they're not. They're action movies.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I'm like, I grew up on horror and they're surprised that I like horror. But yeah, so I do like those movies. As a kid, they were just I don't know if you guys had this. It was oh, those are the movies my dad likes. And it was whatever.
Yep.
But they are good, right? I just feel like you can't pretend they're not, even if it's something your stuffy conservative dad likes.
Right.
But I always really liked Ripley. It's weird because we grew up watching them so much. I definitely still blur the first and second one together sometimes. I forget what happens and what, aside from the get away from her, you bitch. I know that's in the sequel, but everything else kind of mushes together. And this movie, I remember being really excited to see in theaters because, yeah.
It's a lot of expectations, right? We'd been waiting for something like this, and to hear that Ridley Scott was coming back for it felt like such a big deal.
Yeah.
I think, again, watching this, I was like, you know what? This works so much better if you just pretend like it's not an Alien movie. It's not a part of this. And granted, it is. All of this is here. You can see the connections. But if you're coming in yeah, I want an Alien movie,
No.
you're gonna be disappointed, which is why Covenant just does a complete about-face and says, fine, we'll give you a fucking alien movie.
But we're already getting into it, and Zach, we haven't heard your side.
Yeah, so I didn't see this one until 2017, right before Covenant came out. I remember watching the other ones, the other four, on like FX whenever they would come on. So I loved the Alien movies, grew up with them. Alien Resurrection was like one of my favorite ones. Yes. Probably was my favorite one. And I do remember when this one came out, and I remember being like upset that it wasn't like a Ripley movie, you know? And so I was like, I'm just not even going to go see it. I don't care. And I really have like a thing against Charlize Theron.
Wait. I'm sorry.
Just shoot me already. It's okay. It's
Explain
okay.
that.
She annoys the fuck out of me, and I can't. What is language like on here? Are we good to go?
Oh, yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, she annoys the fuck out of me.
I feel betrayed. I didn't know this about you, Zach.
We are witnessing the breakup of my Bloody Judy right now.
It might be a very rare sort of appearance that I like her in. I really like her in Mad Max. I love her in Monster, things like that. But I just feel like Charlize Theron does like Charlize Theron way too often, and it doesn't sit right with me.
You're wrong. You're 100% wrong.
Yes, correct. He is incorrect.
Like, she literally disappears into roles all the time.
Everyone's allowed to have an actor that they don't like. That's fine.
All I came on here to say, and so I'll be making my exit now. And
you're entitled to your wrong opinion. That's fine.
She's fine, whatever, we'll go with that. But anyway, so I didn't want to see this movie, and so I like skipped it, and then when Covenant was coming back around, my husband was really excited to see it because he loved Prometheus. And so we rewatched the first four, we went into Prometheus, and I just fell in love with it. I really, really enjoyed it.
Good. Okay.
I have the same issues that most people have with it. It just feels like it's like, me and Ian were talking about it as we were watching it, because we watched it right before this. It just feels like it's stacked on stacked on stacked, sort of like themes and elements and all of these things that they just can't flesh out in a 2-hour movie like they're trying to do, right? And then I actually really like Covenant too.
Right. I think Covenant can work if you just watch it as a silly little B movie. It's just, after all the work this film did to set up like whatever it was going to do, you could tell that the backlash to this not being a quote-unquote alien movie made them make a lot of abrupt changes. I really hate how they handle Elizabeth Shaw in Covenant.
Yes.
If you watch it, just, it's a fun monster movie with people getting killed. Totally fine. It's just, that doesn't work to me as a sequel to Prometheus.
See, and I would disagree with that completely, because I think this entire movie is setting up what happens with David. Like, you're overlooking everything about how complex the David character is in Covenant.
He is, but Ridley's way too messy to be doing it the way he's doing it. I remember so he did Prometheus. I remember at Covenant coming out, and then I remember him doing interviews after Covenant saying there were going to be 2 prequels before Covenant, then a sequel after Covenant. Like, his train of thought was way too messy to be handling this, and I think he really set David up to fail just with how messy everything was, right? Like, it should have been a really good, like, trilogy, right? We should have had something. I feel like there was a movie missing between Prometheus and Covenant that we desperately needed.
That I 100%, and I think that might be why I held so much against Covenant, because it feels like we were missing a movie.
Yes.
But I don't think, so to go back to what you said about the disappointment about not being an alien movie, for me, that's not my disappointment. My disappointment is what Zach was saying. It's like a hat on a hat on a hat. It's like, we have the aliens, but there's the other aliens, but then they're war machines, but then the other ones are bad, and like, but David is bad, and it's like, but who's the villain? And like, Elizabeth Shaw, she's such a non-character.
I love her so much.
I think she's such a poorly written, like, protagonist badass who has like zero personality.
Okay.
I feel like we need to unpack this.
Yeah, we will. I mean, her personality is, I love Jesus. That is, I'm sorry, I love religion. That is her personality.
Could not be any more off-putting to me.
Well, but that's what the whole fucking movie's about, is faith.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to be like, look, the one who had the cross prevailed. I'm like, no, that one should die. Like, give me like the smart scientist or like the mean girl living.
Well, that's why Charlize Theron should have won this movie.
Yes, she would,
or at least survived.
She couldn't even run sideways. How's she gonna survive?
There it is. We got what? 10 minutes? 10 minutes, and somebody said.
I was in the theater and yelled. Like, Zach knows I hate when people talk in movies, but like, I was like, what the fuck when she was running in the back? Like, just move. Just like.
But you know what, though? For the record, Shaw also runs in a straight line for the entire fucking scene until she trips, and then she's like,
and then she rolls. She trips and rolls.
Jesus. Okay, that's what it was. Power of fate.
It was divine intervention.
Okay, well, we have a lot to talk about with how this movie even got made, because... So let's start.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so development on a fifth film in the Alien franchise was in progress by 2002. This is, I believe, 5 years after Alien Resurrection, because that was 97. Ridley Scott considered returning to the series he created with his 1979 science fiction horror film Alien to pursue a sequel that would explore the engineered origins of the series' alien creatures, the xenomorphs, and of course the space jockey, the extraterrestrial being who briefly appears as a corpse in Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Sigourney Weaver had expressed interest in returning. James Cameron discussed the potential for a sequel with Scott. I do want to say, though, Ian, I'm surprised that you said you get the first and second one mixed up, because they are two completely different films for me, where it's like that first one's a haunted house movie with an alien, and the second movie is a war movie with aliens.
I mean, sure, yeah. I don't know. I think it's just because I grew up watching them so much that, like, and... You know, 3 is so different, right? Like 3...
Very much.
And, you know, I don't like 3, but like, it's so... 3 and Resurrection are just like, you would never mix them up with the other two, but like the settings look the same, and like, we get a lot of like, it's still like a monster chasing them through a sci-fi spaceship, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think 1 and 2 also feel like a very good through line for Ripley's character. So if you're thinking about them as her stories, 2 feels like a very natural extension, just with more army guys.
I will say that Aliens, the director's cut, is like 20 minutes longer, and it's better
really good
because it incorporates Ripley's daughter, who is not in the theatrical cut of that movie. So, but yeah, so James Cameron is like in the deal with this, and then 20th Century Fox is like, hey, James Cameron, we have a script for a crossover film that's going to pit the aliens against Predator. And of course that became 2004's Alien vs. Predator, but Cameron
he pieced out.
He was like, fuck y'all, this will, and I quote, kill the validity of the franchise. So he just said, nope, I'm out. Flash forward to 2009, and Fox says that the project was a reboot of the Alien franchise, and soon afterward was reported as an untitled prequel to Alien. And so, development stopped in June 2009 when Fox clashed with Ridley Scott over his selection of former television advertisement director Carl Eric Rinch as the director of the film, because Fox was only interested in pursuing this project if Ridley Scott directed. So,
which fair.
For sure. So literally a month later, he signed on to direct, and they were like, cool, moving forward with this Alien prequel.
Other dude, you're out.
So, okay, let's talk about the script for this film. Screenwriter John Spates met Ridley Scott in late 2009, and they discussed Scott's desire to pursue an Alien prequel, and Spates offered his concept, including a bridge that would connect the story of the film's human characters to the Alien saga. So Spates was hired, and he claimed he created the concept spontaneously without preconception. He wrote a 20-page, extremely detailed outline within 3.5 weeks, and he had completed his first draft. He submitted it to the producers on Christmas Day 2009, which may be why this film is set on Christmas. I don't know. Within 12 hours, Scott returned the script with notes for changes, and Spates spent the Christmas holiday redrafting the script. Spates was also tasked with exploring the unresolved mysteries from Alien, such as the space jockey, the aforementioned space jockey. He considered the mysteries of Alien to be to be alien in nature.
Fair, yes.
Saying all the mysteries have alien players, the exoskeleton nightmare and the elephantine titan that was called the space jockey. So how do you make anyone care about the events between creatures like this? So his solution was to link the alien mysteries to the past and future of humanity, saying, if that story is somehow ours and deeply enmeshed with the human story, that story changes meaning within our life, things of such significance that we think of our own lives differently. His Trouble, though, was that he had issues translating Scott's stylistic visual concepts to text. He periodically constrained some of Scott's ideas, and in fact reminded Scott that in the scene they were discussing, the characters were subject to gravity so as they could not simply float. So there were a lot of things that they weren't working with very well together, and it was a lot of back and forth, which makes sense for the creative process, but...
But also, you're clapping back against Ridley fucking Scott.
Sometimes you need to, yeah.
Yeah.
Zach's like, Scott is not on top of his shit.
Zach is like, I'm still not ready to forgive.
No, he has cemented his legacy, but sometimes you got to tell the creator, just calm down a little bit.
I say that a lot about David Lynch and Lady Gaga, that they would do well with an editor who's just putting his hand on their shoulder saying, no.
Okay, but now I also want David Lynch and Lady Gaga to collaborate in some capacity.
I would love it.
With Ridley Scott before he dies. So, by April 2010, the script was on the 4th draft. So with the director and writer in place, and they were pleased with Spates' pitch, Fox scheduled a release date for December of 2011, but this was eventually canceled. In June of 2010, Ridley Scott announced that the script was complete and ready for filming. However, he then contacted Lost creator Damon Lindelof and asked him to review Spates' script. And within the hour, a messenger delivered the script to Lindelof and informed him that he would wait outside to return it as soon as Lindelof had finished reading it.
Jesus.
I don't know why Scott wanted Lindelof so bad. I don't really understand this, but...
He was
it has
really
to be
hot
Lost,
back then,
right?
yeah.
I guess, because what, Lost would have ended, I guess, right before this. So maybe he had, like, just gotten off, and he was like, wait, get Lindelof before he gets something else.
Maybe.
And I think Lindelof, he had his hand in a lot of shit around this time,
Yes.
if I recall.
Yeah. And he would have probably been an early development of his Leftovers TV series, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But Lindelof was unaware of what Scott and the producers liked about Spates' existing script and informed them that he found the general concept appealing, but that the story relied too heavily on elements of the Alien films, such as the alien creature's life cycle. As a direct prequel to Alien, the story was shaped to lead into that film's story and to recreate the familiar cues of that series. But Scott wanted to avoid repeating his previous accomplishments, so Lindelof is going there saying, well, if the ending of the film is just going to be the room that John Hurt walks into that's full of alien eggs and alien, there's nothing interesting in that because we know where it's going to end. Good stories, you don't know where they're going to end. And so Heath said, a true prequel should essentially precede the events of the original film, but be about something entirely different, featuring different characters, have an entirely different theme, despite taking place in the same world.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is admirable, but it's also like very audacious when you're making a very well-publicized Return with Ridley Scott prequel. Like I think to a certain extent, they shot themselves in the foot.
Well, I don't know if you'll remember, whenever this was being made, they kept, it started with that, it's an Alien prequel. But then they kept walking it back like more and more as the release date approached. Like, oh yeah, it is a prequel, but it's more like it shares DNA with the Alien franchise, but it's not like a real prequel.
Yeah, that, I remember all of that, because I think when Zach and I started the movie earlier today, I was like, this movie had a lot of rewrites, didn't it? Because I felt like we kept hearing news like, ooh, it's going to come out next year. Ooh, it's going to come out next year. And then it's like, maybe 2 years. I don't love, I feel like maybe that's what bothers me about the movie is I can feel all of that. It's like the push and pull of like, is this or isn't this an Alien prequel? And it doesn't bother me one way or the other, but like land the plane. And I feel like they don't. And I do enjoy this movie. I think this movie is enjoyable, but once I think about the writing, I'm like, do I like this movie? Because like the thing I like about it is that it could be, it's like in that universe, obviously, because we get the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, but it didn't have to be fully connected. But then the connections feel so weak. I'm like, no, but make them stronger if you're going to have them there.
Well, okay, so going back to what Lindelof said about, if the movie just ends with the room where John Hurt walks into, in 2011, we did get a prequel to a very iconic horror film that basically does that exact same thing, where it ends where the original begins, and that would be The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw that pop up on Netflix, and I completely forgot that movie existed, but they just put it up on Netflix, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll actually watch this.
Oh, have you never seen it?
I don't think I have either.
The thing with that movie, I actually think it's a fine movie. Like, it's nowhere near as good as the first one because they went over all their practical effects with CGI, so it all looks like shit.
Yeah, it looks bad, and that's the number one thing that people can't really forgive it for.
Yes, exactly.
That's fair.
But, especially because the original is known for its practical effects, right?
Yeah.
But that aside, it's Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and it's I call it a pre-make because it is a prequel. It deals with the Norwegian crew that they're talking about constantly in the original film. Mm-hmm. But it's basically the same movie where the same thing happens to them, and then it ends, with the opening credits of The Thing, where they're chasing the wolf with the helicopter. So I think it's a fun movie, and they make it to the alien spaceship, and they fight with the alien, blah, 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 blah. But as you said, it's more forgettable. Whereas with Prometheus, I can at least respect their decision to do something wildly different.
Mm.
And I wish there would have been more encouragement for them to go full throttle with that instead. Mm-hmm. Because I think it would have worked so much better without promise and let people just go into it and explore that world with them, right? Because it's world building in essence, and that's so fun, especially for fans of a franchise. Mm-hmm. And if you, we know that they're spaced, right? It's a prequel, so it's like a good amount of time between the first Alien movie and this one, although it's not that much time, but it's still... There was a lot of room to work without having to be like, okay, well, when's Ripley coming in, right?
Right.
It was that roundabout talking that really, I think, probably kept me from going to see it at the theater.
Well, and I wonder how much of it was Scott loving Lindelof's ideas and themes and all the questions he wanted to ask, and then Fox being like, but this is an alien movie, right?
Where the fuck are the aliens? That's how we're selling this film.
So, Lindelof said that the other parts of the script were strong enough to survive without the alien hallmarks, such as the alien creature, which he believed had been diluted by the exposure it had received in the, 20, 30 years since the film's release. Mm-hmm. He said the producers are just looking for someone to say to them, hey, we don't need the alien stuff in here. It shouldn't be about that. It can be a part of the movie, but it shouldn't be what the movie's about. So he said the film should instead run parallel to the Alien series, and that a sequel to Prometheus would be Prometheus 2 and not Alien. Ha ha ha. So Lindelof met with producers the following morning and was hired shortly afterward in late 2010. Under Lindelof, the script diverged from Spates' Alien prequel into an original creation. So at this point, I think Spates was essentially pushed out. Scott and Lindelof worked together 5 days a week between July and August of 2010 to construct the vision Scott wanted to convey and decide what script changes were needed, including scaling back the alien symbolism and tropes. So August and September, Lindelof is spending 5 weeks writing his first draft, which he then submitted in mid-September. He was inspired by Blade Runner and, of course, Spates' script, but he thought it would be possible to combine an alien story of action and horror with the Blade Runner thematic. And again, this is where, Zach, it's kind of like, okay, maybe that's one element too many.
Telling you, the hat on the hat on the hat.
We're cooking with every ingredient in the kitchen.
He just wanted to ask those big questions that are normally posed in science fiction films. So he was leaning more towards the science fiction part of this than the horror part of this, which I get.
Yeah, and you can see it in the finished film, right? It really is philosophical, and I think that's some of the strongest elements of the film.
Mm-hmm. I actually...
We'll get to it.
I remember walking out of the theater feeling like I had so many unanswered questions, but watching it, I was like, really, most of my questions are answered. It just took me a couple watches to figure it out.
Well, so the problem is, though, right, is you feel like your questions are answered. They do explain a lot in this, but then... Ridley Scott's given interviews after and erasing all of that and saying, no, but these weren't those aliens. These aren't those engineers. This isn't that paradise, and it leaves you with even more questions.
So Scott's backtracking, I truly believe, was a direct result of this film's underperformance in America. But...
Well, then he did it again after Covenant.
Because that film also underperformed.
It did. Yeah. So he's just, I want to see his living room wall, because his ass is just staying up till 4 a.m. scribbling ideas on the wall, and it just this movie and the next movie feel like that. It feels like so many ideas, and just all over the place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so Scott's story concept was partially inspired by Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Daniken's work about the theory of ancient astronauts, which hypothesizes that life on Earth was created by aliens. He also developed the theme that while the human crew is searching for their creators, David, the android, is already among its creators. Scott liked these ideas and further explored them in Lindelof's rewrite. And so for Elizabeth Shaw, Lindelof felt that it was important that she was distinct from Alien's Ripley to avoid inevitable comparisons between the two characters. And so in Spates' draft, Shaw was directly responsible for the events of the plot because she wants to seek out potentially dangerous knowledge. As with David, Lindelof expanded this facet of the character during his rewrites, and he spent approximately 8 months developing the script, finishing in March 2011, just as filming was about to begin.
Oof. So there you go, Ian. That's when you look at that timeline, we thought we were going to get that green light in June, and then it takes them almost an entire full year to rewrite it.
Oof. That makes, I couldn't like remember the exact timeline, but I remember like being frustrated that the movie kept not coming out.
I think we kept waiting for them to say, haha, no, we can't actually do this. It's all falling apart. You're never going to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone thought we were going to get another Alien movie after Alien vs. Predator because,
no,
like, Resurrection essentially killed the franchise until Predator revived it. But
But didn't those movies not do that well either, the Alien vs. Predator movies?
Oh, no, the first one made
The first one did, because it was Paul W.S. Anderson.
And PG-13.
Yeah.
The second one was rated R and flopped because they also released it on Christmas Day.
I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one.
The second one is like critically reviled. Like it's considered a terrible fucking movie. I actually think it's really fun because it's Alien versus Predator in suburbia. Like it takes place in a suburban town.
Oh wait, no, I have seen that. I've seen them both then. The first one's in like the Antarctic, right?
Yes.
It's in the pyramid in the Arctic.
I've seen both of them. And when you just said that, I was like, oh wait, I have seen that. It is fun, right? It's not like good, but it's fun. It's like a fun horror monster movie.
It's just very dark because they didn't have the budget, so they're trying to hide what they can't show.
You know, I know this doesn't matter, but the thing that sticks out for me in that movie is when the girlfriend dies, and it's so brutal because it's like they're the main couple, and then she just fucking dies.
Oh yeah, because she's likable. Oh yeah,
yes.
Again, it's not a good movie, but there are some amazing parts in Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Like that, absolutely. Like there's a pregnant woman who, like, a bunch of baby xenomorphs like burst out of her stomach, her pregnant belly. It is wild.
Oh boy!
A kid gets killed in the first scene. Like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Zach, we'll have to watch that together because I feel like you would get a kick out of it.
No, I think I did go see the second one on Christmas.
No.
So I'm trying to keep quiet because I actually really liked it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think it was just the first one, like, exactly knew what it was, right? And the second one tried, if I remember right, tried to do a little bit more. But I still had like a blast with it, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like the first one is more straight, like you said, Zach, it knew what it was doing, but it's a little more traditional Alien Predator. And then the second one's just like more like traditional horror movie, and I think it's more fun.
All you have to do is say Alien versus Predator in suburbia, and I am 100% sold.
Right.
Same.
But for Prometheus, Ridley, this is wild. The gall of this man. He requested a budget of $250 million.
Whoa.
God.
I'm telling you, Scott is...
Zach did say.
He has hit an age, and maybe he needs to direct these movies from a home or something, because it's his ideas are just... I don't know.
Well, unsurprisingly, Fox was reluctant to invest this amount of money and wanted to ensure the film would receive a lower PG-13 rating to broaden its potential audience. And apparently, up until like a month before the film was going to come out, it was originally going to be PG-13, but the one scene that was giving it its R rating was the self-abortion scene, and they didn't want to cut that.
That's one of the best scenes.
Yeah, they needed to keep that for sure.
It was also reported that the film would be called Paradise, named after John Milton's poem Paradise Lost, but Scott considered that this would convey too much information about the film, so they named it Prometheus instead.
What?
Which is also kind of silly because, I mean, if you know Paradise Lost, you probably also know what the Prometheus myth is.
I also feel like Paradise, okay, but it doesn't have to, like, if you said, oh, we named it Paradise, but it's not a reference to the John Milton, like, okay, I would believe that, right? Like, it's just like one word. It's not like that's like a unique... Prometheus feels more on the nose than Paradise.
But yeah, so they filmed this in 3D. This was a 3D film. I will say that this looks fantastic in 3D if you get to see it in such a way. they were using the Avatar technology, but it was like after Avatar had been made, so they were I guess they were better at using it. And of course, they knew they had to have higher light levels on set since filming a 3D film, it darkens the screen.
I mean, that is the thing I will never like jab. This movie's beautiful. Like,
Oh yeah,
and even I was actually wondering if it would hold up, now. I hadn't rewatched it in a while, but it still looks great. The cinematography, that like, I feel like I didn't know what you just said about the lighting, but that makes sense because everything's very clear.
Yep.
And I love that because I hate when movies are too fucking dark.
So you know how for a while in the early 2010s, we were going through a lot of movies that were not shot in 3D cameras. They were post-converted into 3D.
And always look shitty.
Well, and that's because, though, so you have to wear the 3D glasses and it darkens the image for you. So if you're filming a movie in 3D, you have to shoot it at a brighter, or at least color grade it to make it brighter, so that the glasses then make the image look normal on screen. But none of those movies did that. So all those post-converted movies looked like shit because they didn't take into account for the fact that they were going to be post-converted into 3D.
Well, and of course they didn't factor that in because it was such a clear money grab, right? So they didn't really care about your visual experience because they just wanted your higher ticket prices.
And usually the movies weren't good.
No.
Yeah, I remember a lot of movies back like in that era being like annoyed with the 3D because it like didn't add anything. It wasn't good.
Yeah. Looking at you, Clash of the Titans, you fucking piece of shit.
I liked that one too.
Well, but the thing is,
it's enjoyable, but it's not good.
But the thing is, though, if a lot of those movies didn't know they were going to be 3D when they were released, so the director is filming these movies not thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be 3D, and so it absolutely makes a difference in how they shoot the film.
Yeah, that makes sense. That like, oh, that's why it kind of looked shitty because you didn't tell me I was supposed to be filming in 3D.
And it was all of them. Like, I'm surprised Time Traveler's Wife wasn't 3D but following that trend because it just, it was like just about every movie that was out.
Well, and so because, though, like any film being shot in 3D, it needed high levels of lighting on set, the hallmark dark and shadowy atmosphere of the Alien films was actually added in post-production using color grading processes. So when they shot this, like, they shot it extremely bright.
And then went back after the fact, which to me seems like it would be easier to do than trying to augment it after the fact.
Yeah, 100%. But anyway, he did not get a $250 million budget. He got a $130 million budget, which even
still high.
Yes. For a deep, heady, sci-fi kind of alien film, R-rated alien film.
But I think that's why 20th Century Fox said it has to be Ridley Scott, because they knew that they could hang everything on him. Like, he's coming back to the franchise after all this time. It probably seemed like a worthwhile investment.
And I think they used the $130 million really well. Like, it just...
It's expensive looking.
And the next one, Covenant, looks really damn good, too. Do you know, just off the top, what the budget for Covenant was?
I think the budget for Covenant was $90 million, which is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, $97 to $111 million, actually.
Okay.
So there's a gap there, but still a lot of money for an R-rated alien movie.
Yeah.
Well, and so they film this in Shepperton Studios and Pinewood Studios in England. Scott uses 8 sound stages for filming, including the 007 stage. Studio space was limited. The crew had to make 5 stages work for approximately 16 sets, and they increased the size of the 007 stage by over 30%.
Ooh.
As for exteriors, the alien world were shot in Iceland, where filming took 2 weeks. They used Derifoss, one of the most powerful waterfalls of Europe. They filmed in the Ciudad de la Luz audiovisual complex in Alicante, Spain. Shooting areas included the complex's large water tank, a nearby beach. They also filmed in in the Wadi Rum Valley in Jordan. So they went everywhere to film this movie.
Yeah, when I read that opening scene was a location, not like fully digital, I was like, holy shit, because it doesn't look fake, but it looks fake because it looks so crisp, right?
It's otherworldly.
Yeah.
The honest trailer for this movie, it was like one of the first honest trailers that ever came out, but it's like a film whose first 30 minutes are mostly landscape shots.
How dare.
Rude but fair.
Where's the lie? But they look good.
Yeah.
Scott Avoid used He avoided using green screens unless necessary, instead using various items so the actors would know where they should be looking in any particular scene on the practical sets where CGI elements would be inserted in post-production. And so, Noomi Rapace said that green screens were used fewer than 6 times during filming.
That is wild. All you have to do is take a look at the behind-the-scenes videos of any Marvel movie and then compare that to what we're talking about with Prometheus.
Yeah. Before getting into the release and reception, though, I do want to say, so Mark Streitenfeld's score took just over a week to record with a 90-piece orchestra at Abbey Road Studios in London. But the way he did this, so he wrote out the sheet music backwards. So the orchestra played the music backwards. And then he digitally flipped it to play it the normal, like, forward way. So you're hearing the score as it is originally written, the same melody, but with a backward-sounding orchestra, which gives it a kind of unusual, unsettling sound.
Do you know, Zach and I just watched and recorded for The Conjuring. The music kind of reminded me of The Conjuring. Like, especially in the opening when we get, like, one of the scenery shots, and they're like, there's like a building tense musical score, and it reminded me of the weird where it sounds like ghosts howling in The Conjuring. It reminded me of that.
In a similar way, right? Like if the music in The Conjuring does stand in for ghosts, right? This music would stand in for the landscape, and it really does feel like landscape.
The landscape is a character in the film, just like New York City.
Maybe a little bit more of a personality or a character than other films.
Yes. And moving on to that, though, the film actually contains approximately 1,300 digital effect shots. The main effects studio was Moving Picture Company, which produced about 420 of these shots, but several other studios, including, of course, Weta, Fuel VFX, Rising Sun Pictures, Luma Pictures, Lola Visual Effects, and Hammerhead Productions, all produce effect shots for the film. And I wasn't able to go really pour through this Blu-ray, but I do want to point out that the Blu-ray for this film is fucking stacked.
Yeah.
There are 7+ hours of bonus features, but 4 hours of which is a enormous making of documentary.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's really good too. Yeah.
So you went through
it? Has
it?
a commentary from, I've been through it, and then Ridley does a commentary that's really good also.
Oh, I wanted to get to that, but I ran out of time.
That's what I want to listen to, because I feel like I just listened to his brother, Tony Scott, on his commentary for The Hunger, and so I would love to hear Ridley Scott talk about film to see how they compare. Prometheus was released in the UK on June 1st, 2012, and in North America about a week later, on June 8th, 2012. It opened in the number 2 spot domestically with $51 million behind the other weekend's new release, Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted.
Jesus. Something for everyone, right?
But here's the thing, though. I mean, that's a pretty good start for this movie. With this $130 million budget, it went on to gross $126.4 million domestically, so it did not make its money back here, and $277 million internationally for a worldwide gross of $403.3 million. So it was still slightly profitable when you took the international numbers into account.
I think they had to bank on that. Like, they knew that was going to be where it broke even.
I mean, honestly, to me, it's shocking they gave Alien Covenant $100 million after the performance of this movie.
Yeah, but I think they thought they had a slam dunk because they were giving people what they wanted.
Yeah.
It's so wild, too, though, because $400 million, that's a lot, you know? I mean, and it's the same thing with James Cameron, him saying he's got to make what was it, $2 billion to break even.
Which no one thought that movie was going to do that, and it did.
Maybe that's what Ridley Scott should have been doing, is saying, we got to hit $1 billion, y'all. It's just got to be $1 billion, and maybe they're doing it.
You really had to talk up the financials. Folks, if you want another one, you got to give me $2 billion here.
That's in the trailer. This movie will only get a sequel if it makes $2 billion.
Listen, so Sigourney's waiting for the $1 billion mark, guys. Come on. Money, we can make it work.
Oh, here's the thing. Do you think if they had gotten James Cameron back that they would have brought Ridley back in for a cameo? Because he has that fucking connection, right?
Man, I'm telling you right now, if James Cameron came back, if he gave up on Avatar and came back and made a fucking Alien movie again, I would be so happy about that.
It would be wild.
But nevertheless, critically, Prometheus did get a mostly positive reception. We're looking at a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 7 out of 10. And Letterboxd users have awarded a slightly lower score of 6.4 out of 10. And I won't go through the reception because I feel like we're going to cover all those bases when we talk about it. But that's it, Joe. What's Prometheus about?
All right, let's dig in, folks. So we open with sweeping views of an empty planet Earth, and it's interesting, Ian, that you said it sounded kind of like The Conjuring, because I wrote a vaguely Star Trekian score.
Yeah, it reads sci-fi epic to me, which makes sense, obviously.
Makes sense, yeah. So we see a spaceship hover over a waterfall, and Sacrifice Engineer, who is played by Daniel James, disrobes, and he drinks from a cup. We then get to watch his body disintegrate as his DNA literally breaks apart. We get to see this in close-up CGI. And then his corpse plummets into the water and the cells rearrange to signal the birth of humanity as we fade into the title card.
I do think it's interesting that this movie immediately disregards evolution.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's like my first issue with the movie is like, then that doesn't fucking matter. Like,
but that's not a cinematic. Like this intro is so cinematic and it's so intriguing and it just plays with the whole idea of creator and creation. Like, what are you gonna put in the opening of this movie? Like 2 planets colliding and all of that.
But I don't think, but like, okay, then put a kangaroo jumping over a jump rope. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't
be in the third one,
like, it's not like you're seeing it and you're like, wow, the creation. You're just like, wow, that alien disintegrated in water.
I was thinking, wow, the creation.
Well, Ian, I will side with you. I didn't know what this was the first time I saw this movie, and but at the same time, that's okay because I know what it is now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? They're trying to create a sense of mystery and wonder, and then as an audience member, we have to trust that they will give us answers about who is this, why does this matter? I think they thought we would recognize that this character looks kind of like what the space jockey looked like, at least in size and stature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of us got it initially. It definitely is like, oh, I'll get that on round 2, maybe.
I will say, to be fair, even though knock myself, to be fair, even though I've seen those movies so many times, I fucking completely forgot. Like, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I didn't remember the space
This is how the movie opens? Right. I think it's because we're so used to opening in space, right?
Yeah.
And this is a really good one, right? It's you get all your landscape shots, and then does the camera pans up the waterfall, right? And then we see the shot of him he's not even standing there yet. It's just the ship in the sky.
Yeah, because because it leaves him behind.
Yeah, and I think that alone right there, like, just had me hooked.
I mean, when we get to well, never mind. You know what? Fuck it. Sorry. We'll get there because that's when the answers start coming out. But I love the answers because they're so negative. They're so nihilistic.
It's true. This is a very fatalistic movie.
Fatalistic. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. So after the title card, we jump ahead, well, yeah, I guess it's ahead in the chronology of the film, but backwards in the Alien timeline.
Yes.
Ooh, boy, mental gymnastics there. It is 2089 in Scotland, and we are with Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, played by Noomi Rapace in her English language debut. Am I getting that right?
Ooh, I don't...
Or was she in that, Guy Ritchie... Shit. Never mind. I'll cut it out. Because part of me was like, I remember her getting criticisms, and I was like, is it a phonetic English thing? Because I know that she learned English for one of the movies, but I think it was the Guy Ritchie.
Oh, Sherlock Holmes. Oh my God, yeah. Honestly, I keep forgetting. So Sherlock Holmes came out the year before this came out.
Okay. She was in that movie?
The second
She's
one.
in the sequel.
Yeah, because they kill off Rachel McAdams in the first act, and then basically Noomi Rapace replaces her.
Yeah, she becomes
really?
The
they
new
kill
one,
Rachel McAdams' character?
Yeah.
We have not seen this one.
They're entertaining. Yeah.
I saw the first one in theaters and wasn't a fan, so I didn't see the second one.
Yeah, I saw the first one and was like, that was fine, but like...
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Noomi Rapace was mostly known for being Lisbeth Salander in the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy.
There we go. Yes. So we see her and her boyfriend, Dr. Charlie Holloway, who is played by Logan Marshall Green. So, Trace, this is our second Logan Marshall Green film of the year. And they have discovered a 3,500-year-old cave, and in it there are paintings of a star configuration. And at this point, we then jump ahead 4 years, and we are in space. So we are aboard the vessel Prometheus. We see android David, who is played by Michael Fassbender, as he is spying on Dr. Shaw's dreams of her dead father, who is played by Patrick Wilson.
I forgot.
Totally forgot about all of this shit.
Also, it's because a lot of the visual effects, because if you notice whenever they do holograms in this movie, it's like they're made up of little dots, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those dots made it so hard to make the holograms. And I was like, well, why didn't they just make it like a solid hologram to make it easier for themselves? But that's probably Ridley Scott being like, I have a vision.
See, I feel like that right. You just nailed what my issue with the movie is. Like,
why are we making it harder?
Yeah, like it just reeks of pretentious straight dude to me.
Ooh.
Like, there's few things that are less appealing to me than like that vibe. I went to grad school and got an MFA. I deal with those straight guys all the time. And I just like, the moment something feels like pretentious straight guy, I'm like, bleh. So it's impressive that I do still enjoy this movie. But like, so the reason I don't like the beginning is because, and Zach pointed this out when we were watching it, Noomi Rapace is like, oh, that sketch means we have to find them. What? Like,
what about this tells you that?
But this is like the 12th one of these they have found.
But there's nothing that's like, I don't know, it just is like a stupid sketch on a cave. And for us to breeze by that, but then we like pause on the weird alien, like drinking the acid juice and jumping in the waterfall. Like for me, like the pacing there is like, well, we gotta balance this out. Like, couldn't we have like, you know?
I wonder if, honestly, if you watch this movie as almost like a fable or like a Greek myth, if it maybe is, because then the characters' stupid decisions they don't bother me as much. I'm like, well, this is really like, especially if we're going into religion, like we're watching almost a religious fable here.
Right. Maybe this would work better if it was directed by Darren Aronofsky, who is a legitimate asshole.
It could have been worse, Ian. It could have been worse.
I mean, also, we're placing a lot of blame on Scott when, again, I say blame. This is a 4 out of 5 movie for me. But a lot of, I think, Scott's pretension, as you're saying, Ian, is coming from the fact that he has made a script. Baby. Well, it's coming from Lindelof. Lindelof and his lofty ideas and questions without answers is what Scott is interested in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I would buy pretentious straight guy from Scott, but no, I don't know about straight guy because he's done a lot of like queer coded projects, right? And this
Gladiator,
yeah, just one to say, and I think this one fits in there. I don't know if I would say pretentious straight guy.
Would you prefer
I think I understand
guy?
what Ian's saying. It's it's a vibe. It's not necessarily that this movie is straight. Like, we're going to talk about some weird queerness in this movie. A little bit more subtle than Alien Covenant, which actually has that queer couple in it. Well,
kind of.
Confronter, because it's still secondary. But I think what some people struggle with this film and other films like it is that it can take itself very seriously. Like, I think we've described this as, it's heady, it's philosophical, and I think sometimes it feels like the film wants to play fast and loose with its own mythology so that it can stand on a soapbox and be like, look at how smart I am.
Yes, that very 100% that. And like, I feel like Zach's probably tired of hearing me say this because I say it all like I hate when something's telling me it's smart. Just show me you're smart.
See, I guess ever since I've actually started like writing film reviews, I've become way less inclined to call something pretentious. If only because, I mean, look, I've been
writing film reviews for like 10 years.
Well, okay, so for me personally, what I'm saying is I think that Ridley Scott is a smart man. I don't think he is showing off, look how smart I am in this movie. I think he is genuinely interested and fascinated by everything he is putting on screen here. He is just not telling it in the best way to make it very easily digestible. And I think that is what makes people quick to jump to pretentious when they're like, oh, I don't understand this, therefore it's pretentious. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, Ian. I always feel like if I call something pretentious, it's like code for I don't understand this.
Well, that's not what I use it for.
I think, Zach, you were the one who said initially off the top that you felt like this movie didn't have enough time to thoroughly explore everything it wanted to do. And I think that that's where some of these frustrations come from, because there's a lot of fascinating details in here. Like you're saying, Ian, you know, tell me more about this exploration of the different caves and how you got to this sense.
Yes.
And sometimes it just does feel a little bit like a narrative shorthand, right? You know, okay, we've got the scientists we need to introduce. We've got to do the call to action or the call to mystery or adventure. Cave paintings, let's go.
Cave paintings, let's go.
Okay, so we're still on board this ship. We get to watch David do a couple of other things, including watch Lawrence of Arabia. He gets to dye his hair because he's a giant mo. And then we see him even pay homage to Ripley's basketball shot from Alien Resurrection.
And he's also watching film classics like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, bitch, I just said that.
Oh, shit. I am listening, I swear to God.
He watched it a couple times, so it's worth mentioning a couple more.
This is true. A film so good, it's worth repeating twice.
I've actually never seen Lawrence of Arabia.
I don't think
I haven't either, don't worry.
It's probably
That's a different podcast. It's not horror. It's not queer. Moving on.
Don't beat yourself up over it.
Okay, so the ship reaches its threshold destination, aka where it's supposed to be going, and the first woman up is abrasive company woman Meredith Vickers, played by Zach's favorite, Charlize Theron.
No, okay, Zach. So is this Charlize Theron playing herself in this role?
I do like her in this one. I will say this is one of the ones that I do like her in, but yeah, she is. She just is. Stone face, just, you know, tough as nails.
A little bit bitchy.
That's just always. She's got that role so nailed down that it's hard to see her as anything else, and I don't often see her as much else.
Question for you. Have you seen, this is recent,
Let's pull up that filmography. Let me pull it up.
Bring up the IMDb.
Yeah, let's pull it up.
like, have you seen Long Shot, where she plays the president with Seth Rogen?
I have not. And admittedly, I've not seen all of her movies either. So I'm sure there are ones that she has done a phenomenal job in.
Well, I only bring that movie up because it's it's a romantic comedy. It's an R-rated movie, whatever. But, like, she gets to play, like, loose and fun. And so that, to me, is almost like, that to me is Charlize Theron playing herself, because I envision Charlize Theron as the loose, fun, like, ecstasy-taking woman that she is in that movie. But I'm trying to get a lock on, like, who is the Charlize Theron that keeps playing herself?
If that's the Charlize Theron that is playing Charlize Theron, then I would like to see that one. So maybe I'll have to check that one out, right? But, like, damn, Fast and Furious, Mad Max, or not Mad Max, The Huntsman 2, you know.
Ice Bitch. Okay.
It's just, maybe that's not, maybe it's, I didn't phrase it right when I said she's just playing herself, but she's playing
the same type.
She has a specific role and a specific go-to sort of character that she does, and she does it often.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like that's completely fair, but I'm just surprised hearing it from you, Zach. This feels like something I would say.
Well, and that's how I've always pictured her in real life, too. So I guess I would just say, I guess it's what your perception of her is, you know.
So, listeners, everyone, send Zach your recommendations for movies where Charlize Theron plays a fun-loving free spirit.
Or, you know what's better? What's better is send me interviews, right? I have
so you can see what
lot
she's
of
like in
fun.
person.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun seeing somebody in an interview where they're having a good time, and I can usually pick up a personality from there.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I do think what you're saying is totally fair, Zach. But it doesn't bother me because I don't know, like, especially in this movie, like, I mean, but fucking duh. Like, that character is written to be the character Ian likes.
Right.
Because I always like the, like, biting, hard, no bullshit woman who is not incorrect when she says, don't let that man on the ship.
Right. It's serving corny behavior, right?
It's funny, though, because that to me is like, oh, we're pulling that from Alien, because it's literally a lift of a scene from Alien.
Yeah.
Ian saying she is correct, but Ian was very much like saying, let him on the ship.
Oh God, no.
No, I wasn't.
Were you not? I thought I heard you saying it.
No, I said she's right. That's what I said to you.
Okay. Well, I do like her in this, and I like this character a lot.
I actually would have taken more of her in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's my segue to get us back on track, because I think that's my main criticism of this film. I'm actually fine with all of the philosophical stuff, the narrative shortcomings. For me, it's that there are too many fucking characters in this movie. Because when I was trying to put this plot synopsis together, like, so we meet Meredith Vickers, and then we basically get a really quick introduction to most people as we recreate the mess hall breakfast scene as everybody wakes up. We've got Captain Yannick, Idris Elba, not enough of him in this movie. Could have done with way more Elba in this movie. We've got Dr. Ford, who I know Kate Dickie isn't a huge actress, but I'm just like, why the fuck is she even in this movie? Like, why isn't David just playing Doctor?
I forgot she was in this, and honestly, her death isn't even like good because she gets knocked away, and you're like, oh, I guess she's dead now.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's smacked and she just never comes back.
but like, she also plays a villainous role, and I was like, why aren't we getting more of that?
But is she villainous? I don't even know if I would call her villainous in this, because we didn't spend enough time to see her do anything truly villainous.
Well, we do when she's going to put Shaw in cryo sleep so they can preserve the squid baby.
Yeah, she's collaborating with Waylon.
Yes.
I will say that I was a little bit unclear on whether they were just like, oh, she's like sick, so we have to put her in cryo, whatever. Or it's like, oh, she got that weird alien baby, so we're putting her in cryo.
Yeah, no, because David saw that thing, immediately told Waylon, and got his crew of insiders, which included Kate Dickie's character. She'd be like, cool, put that bitch in cryo sleep. We're going to save that squid baby.
Okay.
But you'd be forgiven for not knowing that because none of it is actually explained. I think you have to infer because Ford is aware that Waylon is on board and she's treating him, which then lends credit to the idea that she would be in favor of like capturing an alien baby, bringing it back to planet Earth, blah, 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 blah.
Which really goes to show how pro-religion and anti-science this movie is.
They're on the record as saying that this movie is pro-science.
That's interesting to me, but okay.
Because they wanted to be, you can be a scientist, but you can also be religious. That's the whole point of Dr. Shaw.
That's Lindelof. That's Lindelof.
Yeah, I actually do. I also felt like it was more pro-religion. And I guess like it could just be my like brattiness to like being repelled by religion. But like, I'm like, she had to put the fucking cross. That's what's important. Okay. You get in your cross.
Yeah. But at the same time, though, isn't it funny, though? Because the opening scene of this movie outright undoes most religions.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it's also about sacrifice and I don't know. Well, okay. Well,
you'll just
let's park that and we'll come back to it as we go. So other characters that are sort of important, biologist Milburn, played by Rafe Spall, as well as geologist Fifield, who is played by Sean Harris. And my queer reading for this is that these two are in a romantic comedy, will they, won't they, because they fight and they would have fucked, except, oops, they die.
I will say, when you talk about how many characters there were in this movie, whenever Fifield comes back as a zombie and he kills
like who?
Oh. Because he kills like 3 people, and I was like, who are these people?
Oh, the security team. Yeah, no, those are literal red shirts.
See, Alien had it right. You have a crew of 6 people.
Get to know your cast, because you can't.
Because even in the final scene, when Yannick is like, I'm going to murder myself to blow up this alien spaceship, and there's 2 pilots, and it's like, one of them is Benedict Wong, and yet I defy you. Tell me that character's name.
I forgot he was in this movie. I was like, Zach, is that Wong from Doctor Strange?
And it's such a heroic moment, but I don't know how they would mentally get there where they'd be like, I'll go down with you, Captain. Right? Like, we didn't see anything.
I think for me, it's like, oh, we're already this far away from Earth. It's going to be such a long drive back. Honestly, I might as well kill myself.
I'm tired.
I thought it as like, well, we're going to die anyway. Like, if we don't do this, we'll die. At least if we crash.
Well, Vickers was not feeling that.
That's why I love that character. She's like, get me the fuck off this shit.
Yes.
You got so much of her just from her little escape route than you did in the rest of the movie.
Okay, so we get a terse introduction, and Vickers opens this show. So this kind of lays out some exposition about what exactly we're doing on the Prometheus, where we're going, and so on. So we get a hologram of Waylon, who is played by Guy Pearce in old age drag makeup. And he reveals that, yes, David is an android. He is interested in life after death and the big questions of the universe. And then he basically says, take it away, Shaw and Holloway. So they come up and they do this spiel about how we found 12 different cave paintings from very different times, and they all seem to have the same thing. Come and find us. Let's go into a creation myth.
Don't you have this meeting before you leave Earth? Because everybody is not receptive to this idea, and it seems like maybe you would agree after hearing the pitch.
It's like, oh, were these people just here because they were paid a shit ton of money?
That's what it is. Because again, we know that Charlize Theron knows what's up. But Wayland, as we will find out later, only wants to know how to stop dying.
Right.
So yes, he absolutely he spent $1 trillion on this thing.
It's just wild. Like, I can't imagine signing up for something and saying, I'm going to a space planet somewhere. And it doesn't matter why. I just need to get paid.
No, because Alien, the very first Alien, that's what they're doing. They're just getting paid to do whatever fucking trash mission, like literal trash mission they're on.
I guess. These are scientists, though. They're not blue-collar workers.
That's the thing. Like, some of the other people, like, sure, the Fifield or whatever, he's more, like, hired muscle.
No, he's a geologist.
Right? Yeah, I was gonna say he's not, but he comes off that way. Like,
he does.
Sure, maybe some of, like, the more, like, doofy guys, but, like, yeah, the, like, Lumi Rapist is like a scientist. She's the one that saw the cave paintings that she said were what made them want to go to space. So, like, it just a little bit is like, well, they don't know what, like, even if they knew it just a little bit more.
Well, no, but they know. Well, they think they know what they're doing. Sorry, for Lumi Rapist and for
Holloway.
They think they know what they're doing, which is just to go contact their creators. They don't know about the ulterior motive of, bitch, we only want to find out how to be immortal.
Yeah, for me, the scene is just it's a little too for the audience as opposed to the characters who I have to believe would have at least asked a couple questions before they went into fucking hypersleep for 2 years.
I disagree with, I think in the future, it's just a normal thing.
That's fair. We'll find out in 50 years?
Yeah.
No, 60 years. Sorry, we're 60 years away. I can do math.
Is that when Covenant takes place?
Alien.
No, but isn't Covenant... Oh, Covenant's not.
This is all before Alien. This is a prequel. Trace.
Oh my god, but you said 60 years, so is Alien 60 years after this movie?
I'm saying the year is 2023, so we'll find out in 60 years.
This is the same conversation all of the crew is having on the ship as well. Yeah. They are not sure what's going on.
That was not clear.
I was like, am I stoned?
The answer is yes. Everyone listening to this, please be stoned. It will make more sense.
I think, to answer your question, Ian, I think that Alien Covenant takes place 4 years after this.
Okay.
Alien, by the way, takes place in 2122.
Ooh, that's quite a jump.
Well, it doesn't... It's only 30 years.
Yeah, 2122. So 2089 to 2122.
Yeah. I'm gay, I don't know math.
Clearly, we've all demonstrated none of us can follow math from the last 5 minutes. I'll try to clean that up in the edit.
Good fucking luck.
Okay, so after this Dog and Pony show, Shaw and Holloway get a tour of Vickers' self-contained living quarters, including Chekhov's med pod.
I love that Theron, like, never leaves this fucking ship.
She doesn't want to debase herself by interacting with the rest of the crew, I think.
Well, also,
how could she possibly?
Y'all relate to her, right? Because she's very much like I don't believe in your stupid gods. I think this is all a sham, and then we're going to get there and find nothing, and then I can go back and tell my daddy that this is all a waste of money.
But what I would say is, like, would be like, yeah, sure, aliens, like, fine. I would be like, yeah, there probably will be aliens, but they're not gods. Like, that's how it's not that I wouldn't believe aliens weren't there. It's that I would be like, don't say God. Like,
But they're out looking for creation, or like the line of creation, right? So that can even go beyond just the concept of God. It's just, I don't know, they're trying to find some sort of origin space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, Shaw is also searching for a bit of meaning, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where the struggle is interesting in her character between her science background, where she's saying, you know, we can track this and that, and that's why I'm interested, but also because she wants to believe in something better. She wants to believe in something larger than that. And of course, you know, we're supposed to read that into her daddy issues, but this film is filled with them. So.
But that's also where, like, Shaw doesn't learn her lesson. Like, her need for answers and knowledge gets a lot of people killed in this movie.
It's true. And then she continues to get people killed.
And then she ends the movie with, like, instead of like, oh, I could go home, or I could go to the home plan and ask them, why did they want to kill us? And like, bitch, did you not live through this movie?
Yes.
No, but she's already that far in, right? Like, she's already sent the signal saying the ship and the crew are all gone, you know, and she's not coming back. It's just, why go back? You're that far anyway. And you have this David who can get you to where you need to go.
Because she saw that the aliens just kill everyone, so you know they're not going to be like, yes, let's sit down and talk about this. They're going to fucking kill you.
But I guess in her mind, though,
Ian, she has to believe something will change.
Exactly. That's exactly the problem.
No, but I like that. I like that the need to believe in something, right? Like, I do think of Shaw as somebody who, yes, wears the cross, calls it God, but is also open to whatever the truth is going to be. She just needs to believe in something. Right.
Well, and that's why, Ian, I will combat you on Shaw being like a one-dimensional character. I mean, I made a joke that was like her character trait is that she's religious. She loves God, she loves Jesus, whatever. But while I don't agree with Shaw's like ideologies, I do find her a fascinating character and very flawed because she will do whatever it takes, including many stupid things, to get the answers she seeks, which, you know, I think that's what a lot of people who are very religious, you know, they want those answers. It's comforting, right? And so when she is faced with the reality of what the engineers are in this movie,
that's why she has to keep pushing, because she can't accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't agree with her ideologies, but I find it fascinating because I know people like her.
I just, like, you guys saying, like, she's already in it so far, and I just, like, I do get what you're saying, but for me, I'm like, yeah, and everyone died. Like, why would I be like,
who is she
well,
going
it'll
back
work out for me
though,
this time?
You know?
Yeah,
like,
everyone she knows is dead.
Well, but she doesn't have any, like, there's no other family. That was just her, like...
Just from what we know, let's just say, just from what we know, all of her research has consumed her, and it was her and her man both doing the same research. Her dad's dead. I don't know if she did have much, or I don't read it that she had much of a life outside of this.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day, Ian, like even though I get where you're coming from, I buy, based on what we know about Elizabeth Shaw, I buy every single decision she makes in this movie based on the information this film gives us about her.
Mm-hmm. I love her. I will always defend her.
Okay, so I'm going to name the pilots just because they do pop back up at the end. So we have Chance and Ravel, and that would be Emin Elliott as well as Benedict Wong. So they're offering statistics about how inhospitable the planet is, and this will become important once we get inside the pyramid. And yeah, we end up spotting this kind of weird geographical anomaly. Holloway's like, yeah, put her down there. I want to get an exposition team. Let's go in immediately. We get some fun moments where he and David get into a bit of a spat. And I think this is partially why David ultimately ends up poisoning Holloway, is because he doesn't like Holloway critiquing his humanity.
Well, and Holloway's kind of a dick to him.
He's a huge dick to him.
I don't know if I agree with that because I don't like... We can discuss David. That's a whole podcast episode. But I don't think David feels. I truly think that when David drops that little black goo into his thing, because he does ask him, what would you do to find the answers? And he's like, anything. And for his computer brain, he's like, all right, cool. Let me drop this black goo.
You don't think, like, later when Holloway is drunk and throwing the balls down the billiards table and David catches it, you don't think that was out of, like, some sort of annoyance?
I just don't. Based on what we know about androids in this franchise, I don't think that there's any personal vendetta. I think it's all purely curiosity and scientific based.
I can buy
all
that.
of his decisions.
I sort of can, but I feel like David is most interested in Shaw and Holloway because he sees something in them that he relates to, like this primal drive to get answers to everything, but also he doesn't do this to Shaw, right? Like, he's happy to let her carry her alien baby, but he specifically went to Holloway to do the infection. And I think that that's because they had these kinds of interactions earlier.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know what this thing is going to do, so he doesn't know for certain that he is dooming Holloway to death.
Trace.
This is an
Give it up, man. No, absolutely not.
This is an experiment for him. This is an experiment. That's all it is. And granted, could there be other factors that made him like choose Holloway specifically? Sure. But do I think it's a personal vendetta based on feelings? No.
Oh, see, I feel like I get what you're saying, but I feel like it's like, which of these lab rats do I fucking hate? Oh, this guy, so I'm gonna start with him.
Because they do build it up that way, don't they? Yeah, like they give Holloway and David those interactions so that is set up. Are we doing a queer reading of David in this one?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, because we went there for Covenant when we covered it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
I guess I just think that David is so fucking curious and wants to learn. He's learning and he's doing experiments, but I don't think it's like, oh, fuck you, Holloway, I hate you, therefore here you go. And that's why he asked him the question. I guess here's my alternative theory. If he said, what would you do to, fucking find your answers? And he was like, well, I do a lot of things, but I wouldn't want to, be a human lab rat. Do you think David would still have put this thing in his drink?
Okay. We're not clapping back against that, Trace. We're suggesting he specifically picked Holloway as opposed to picking someone else.
I just think it's because he believes he was the prime subject for it.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's fine. I belabored the point.
I think the only thing that would keep me from 100% believing that it was like without any sort of feeling, because I can buy that, but I think the only thing that would keep me is that they do spend time specifically making Holloway kind of a dick to David. And why do that if you're not telling us something about that?
The closest thing that I could get to believing that is when David asked him, well, why did your creators create me? Because we could. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, how would you feel if your creators told you the same thing? Like, which again is the whole fucking thesis of the film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, David tends to wear it on his sleeve for sure. Okay, so we get inside this pyramid, and this is when Fifield sets his pups loose. I thought that was a very interesting word. Obviously, for a queer audience, the word pups from a grown man has like a certain kind of connotation. Obviously, in this case, I think the film is just saying like, oh, I'm letting the dogs out so that we can map the interior of this installation, building, whatever you want to call it.
We're just missing the pup masks and the collars.
There we go. So we get to a particular room that they suggest might have been terraformed, and this is the other big criticism of this film, is that it's populated with scientists who make very stupid, impulsive decisions. For me, I'm not particularly bothered by this because I think you can be a scientist and still be a fucked up, fallible human being. So Holloway is a bit of an impulsive jerk. So when he's like, oh, it's breathable, I'm going to take off my helmet, I don't question that. It feels character-driven to me.
I agree. They waited their entire lives for this moment, and he is running on a high, several highs right now. So I 100% believe everything that he does.
Him, but what about everybody else? Because everybody else is trained too well, right? And if we're going back to it being money driven and their object is to get some money and get back, right? Then why would they take a risk like this? I could see him, I could see Shaw both doing it, but nobody else.
But he did it first, and he's fine. So therefore, it's fine.
It wasn't even 2 minutes, because they said 2 minutes, though, and it wasn't even 2 minutes before everybody was taking their helmets off. Right?
It feels like a group mindset thing, right? Like, we kind of see people go along with things because someone did it first.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We like to believe that people are very, very, very smart. And unfortunately, people are flawed. Humans are flawed beings. And in this moment already, they think they've made some kind of amazing discovery. So I get it, but I'm not one to criticize character behaviors. And also because we don't really know much about them other than they're scientists.
Mm-hmm. Right. That is true. Also, people have always made dumb choices in alien movies.
Yeah, right. Okay, seriously. Look at the first movie.
I think, like, normally I do agree with you. It doesn't normally bother me. Like, in horror movies, I'm like, yeah, if you're panicking, like, not everyone is, like, thinking clearly. Right. Mm-hmm. But it does bother me in this. This is, like, maybe one of the only movies that it does bother me, because it just feels a little too stupid.
Well, it's because what y'all were saying earlier is this movie is trying to be smarter than you're
Yes.
just a horror
right.
movie, right?
So then how do you feel about John Hurt putting his fucking face in an open egg sack in that first movie?
But at least that's like, he's not doing it like, look, I'm gonna put the stupid egg sack on my, he's like looking at it. I don't know. He's like trying to like inspect it.
Oh, okay, so when Milburn tries to touch the clearly dangerous alien snake later in this movie, that's fine, because it's the same thing as what John Hurt's doing in that first movie.
No, it's terrible. Don't do that.
Which
I
one
feel
is
like that's the
Milburn?
hardest one to get behind. You're just like, Milburn, buddy.
I also can like very much forgive all of these like stupid behaviors. Like I like to rag on them and they're fun to just point out, but that will not hold me up, you know.
Well, and so that's, again, the one really good point the Honest trailer for this movie points out is where they're like, and a scientist who is terrified of a 10,000-year-old dead alien corpse wants to touch this clearly dangerous alien snake.
Yeah. I think we would forgive some of these if we knew these characters just a little bit more.
That's
It's
a good point.
a bit of a problem when we don't know Milburn very well. Like, at this point, we kind of know Holloway, but also not too much. We know him more via Shaw than him as an individual. But I think if this movie had a few less characters and we could just spend a bit more time with them, I think... Well, we might be more frustrated when they make very dumb decisions, but I think we might also say, oh, well, I know what's driving you a little bit more.
I think you're right.
But I also think, here's the funny thing. Y'all are saying, oh, they're scientists, they should know better. But for me, I'm like, yeah, but they're scientists, they're curious.
Yeah.
That is true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and like, that's why, like, with him touching this, it doesn't actually bother me as much as some of the other things, because it is like, oh yeah, they're curious, that's why they're doing this. It's when
Right.
like, oh, everyone's dying in front of me, but I'm pretending that's not, like, he hasn't watched anyone be murdered by these monsters, so he's like, oh, cool, an alien life form, it's like a cute little snake, and like, yeah, that's dumb, but that's a little bit more viable. It's like, I can buy that more than like someone running in the path of something falling off.
Nevertheless, though, I mean, how much time have we just spent talking about the stupid decisions characters make in this movie when literally that's not even like the point of the movie? And that's actually what I find fascinating about discourse around this movie is that people like to hone in on, oh, why does Charlize Theron only run in a straight line? Oh, why do these people take this snake? Oh, why do they make these stupid decisions? Where I'm like, but that's not...
There's other things.
I hate that is so distracting for viewers in a film that is clearly having a much larger conversation. These are minor quibbles. I agree. Is it sometimes frustrating? Yes. But they are such minor quibbles to where they don't affect my viewing experience because I'm more interested in the conversations the film is actually having.
And it shouldn't really distract you from or affect your viewing experience, but it is still fun to point out and still fun to have conversations about. Like, I love making jokes about her running in a straight line. It's so fucking funny to me. When you watch it, it looks funny. It's just, you know.
Okay.
But, like, you should be able to continue the movie if just because they take their helmets off, you know?
But like, that's like saying, well, the characters are poorly written. That's not the point. Like, but it is the point. It's a movie. We're watching a movie with characters. So like, they have to be well written. I feel like to say like, oh, well, that's not the point. It's like, but it's a movie. We're watching characters that were written.
It's a question about your own forgiveness, really. Like, if you really cannot forgive it, then you leave it alone, turn the movie off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of somewhere in the middle where some of this annoys me, but I think at the end of the day, I tend to side more on Trace's point where I think the movie is asking a lot of interesting questions, and that lets me sort of gently side-eye some of the dumb character motivations, but it's not the point, so... You know, yeah, we make a joke about it and then we move on because the film is doing more interesting things.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I still enjoy the movie. Like I said, like, I think it's an enjoyable watch and I think everything looks like gorgeous. But I don't know. I just don't think, like, if there's something bad about a movie, that feels like something someone would say to be like, no, it's not bad because that's not the point. It's like, well, everything's got to be like good.
No. I mean, look, I am not trying to imply that you're critiquing these decisions as an invalid critique. Like, they are absolutely valid critiques. But I'm saying that for me, I'm able to look past that just because it's not the part of the film that I'm interested in and not the part that I think the film's interested in. But yeah, are you right? Where it's like, yeah, characters should be able to be drawn enough to where you can understand and buy the decisions they make. Absolutely. And if that's an issue you have, absolutely critique it. It's just, it doesn't really factor too much into any critique I have in this film.
Well, and that makes sense. Like, I feel like with every, especially genre and horror, it's like, what are you willing to forgive? What are you not willing to forgive? Like, Zach and I saw Scream 6 twice, and I think, was it Alistair, Zach, that was like, okay, but that character wasn't strong enough to do that. And we were both like, yeah, but in horror movies, you just kind of like...
Oh, you gotta let that shit go with slashers all the time, right?
In Scream 6, about every single character that lived in that movie should died.
Be dead.
Like, but you know what? It's fine. I look it over.
But, like, I do understand where that, like, maybe someone who isn't as forgiving, like, I do understand where that would, like, bother them. But, like, I feel like with Scream movies, either you just have to get used to that.
You gotta let that go.
But, like, I do understand why, like, as the fucking nerds that we all are, it's like you have the things you can forgive and then have the things that, like...
Yeah, I guess I just feel like, again, in this movie specifically, it's like, I don't want to nitpick about character decisions. Like, I don't want to get Neil deGrasse Tyson over the character decisions in this movie. You can, and that's fine. It's just,
Do you dare compare me to that man?
Anyway.
Okay. So we see them kind of exploring a little bit. David is off on his own. He ends up finding... The ship is surprisingly musically oriented, so he's constantly activating things using either lights or music, and so he touches some stuff on the wall, and this sets off a kind of hologram memory where we see the engineers running from something, and the rest of the group decides that they're going to follow, and this is where we see the decapitated body of an engineer, so he's lost his head under a doorway, and this sends the film in sort of two different directions. So Fifield and Milburn decide they're out and they are going to go back to the ship. There's some continuity issues with why they don't get back to the ship in time before the storm comes, but the others press on and they find a tomb full of sweating canisters all lined up in front of this giant human-like face statue.
It's okay. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but so much of my issues with the first time I watched this movie was because, I was born and raised Catholic, and I'm not Catholic anymore, but I still have religious proclivities.
I hope I didn't mean to offend you with that.
Oh,
I didn't
you
mean
have
to
not.
Oh god, no,
okay.
no. I don't give a fuck. I'm agnostic now, but But the thing was that so much of my issue with this movie when I first watched was I refused to believe the engineers were actually quote unquote bad beings. That wanted to destroy humanity. Because again, born and raised Catholic, I'm like, God doesn't do that. The creators of mankind don't want to hurt us. And so that's why I identify with Elizabeth Shaw so much, because even though I don't maintain a lot of my Catholic beliefs anymore, I feel the same way she does. Where I'm like, well, why the fuck did you create us?
And why do you hate us? Why do you want to destroy us now?
What did we do? And granted, you go on Twitter for 2 minutes, you understand why people want to destroy us. but that's, I guess that's why, I relate so much. And I was so confused on a first watch because I was like, wait. This movie is positing that mankind's creators are fuck-ups, horrible human beings. Even the idea that they made this weapon of mass destruction and lost control of it. It's like, well, God doesn't do that. God doesn't lose control. So, I don't know. That's why the more I watch this, the more fascinated I am by it.
So, did you not like it when you first watched it? Or that just bothered you, but you still liked it?
It wasn't a bothersome effect. It was more so I was
confronted.
I was at a crossroad. I didn't know what to think because I was like, I was confused when it ended because I was like, wait, what? God is evil?
I mean, the funny thing is that if you read it through Elizabeth Shaw's eyes, the film suggests that this isn't God. This is just another race, and that there is still a potential God who created these characters, right?
That's where I fall with it is, and just from some stuff that Ridley said in interviews and things like that, is that there is sort of a chain of creation, and they haven't reached God yet.
Yeah, they haven't hit the top.
Yeah.
So Shaw, aim higher.
Exactly.
No, she wants to go fuck up these ones. She's like, we're taking these ships of mass destruction to their houses, knocking on their doors, and
which is
fuck 'em up,
Covenant,
Shaw.
essentially. Well, because that's where the Paradise Lost part comes in, right? So humanity is the offspring humanity who was expelled from the garden, and hypothetically, these engineers are kind of like the Adam and Eve, where they get the ball rolling with original sin. They move out of the garden because of something that they did, but they were still created by something else.
And it could also be like, there can be many reasons why they would want to snuff these guys out, these humans out, right? We know that they have been watching them for a very long time and visiting them over time, right?
Hence all the cave painting.
Yeah, humanity is just self-destructive, right? So that could be a reason. It could also be a reason of we're seeing them advance too far, and we don't want them to advance that far.
Yes. No, but that's the thing. We are a failed experiment to them.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's why the conversation between Holloway and David is so important, where it's like, because Shaw wants to believe we are here for a reason. They created us for a reason. And sometimes it's just, no, they created you because they could, and they didn't like really how you turned out, so they're going to come kill y'all.
Exactly.
And
Earth was a petri dish, and they decided the experiment went badly.
yes, and that is such a horrifying concept. And again, if you are a really religious person, that can break your brain if you find out that that is what the whole deal is.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, and I'm so sorry that I keep, like, I feel like I'm, like, I'm shitting on this movie so much.
That's why you're here.
Enjoy it.
You're
It
here
is
to provide the
enjoyable.
alternative point of view, Ian.
I think, like, what you just said made me kind of realize they answer that question very early on, and I also feel like not only was it said out loud in the movie, but it was very much shown to us, like, that guy comes back and he just kills them. So I guess I think that's maybe a thing that bothers me too, is like, she had her question answered, but she's pretending she did not.
Exactly, because she can't accept it.
Yeah.
She won't accept it.
And that's human fallacy. Like, that's religious people.
Well, let's not get that broad.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
I think part of this is that the religion definitely plays an aspect, particularly in the Shaw character, but this movie is also generally about human hubris. Like, we dare to think that we deserve to conquer the stars, that we have all of the answers because we are scientists and so on. Like, these people shouldn't fucking be here because they don't know what they're doing. And that's another reason why I accept all of their really illogical decisions, because I'm like, you are so proud and entitled because you think that you are at the top of the food chain. This movie presents that there are at least 2 levels above you.
Oh, and Ian, you think you are so important. You think that your existence means something, when in fact, what this movie tells us is your existence means nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I love that too, though.
I do too!
That's so good. It just, I always lean into a bleaker sort of answer, ending, question, any of it, and this just hits me
Tough
right
though,
where
right?
I
Like, we're
it.
talking about a summer blockbuster that's just meant to be an Alien prequel.
I think, again, I mean, not to bring it back to Alien Covenant, and I agree with you. There are, I will watch this again, having watched it so close to seeing Prometheus again, but like, I just, like, there's so much about that second movie that I'm like, this feels stupider than a lot of what came before.
See, I always just focus so much on the David stuff in Covenant that's where I'm willing to do my forgiveness of that film, Trace. It's the way that you're overlooking the character fallacies here. I focus just on David mostly in Covenant.
Well, the problem with Covenant, right, is that it feels like they had so many questions, so many answers, so many ideas in this one, and then they realized that probably didn't work, and so for Covenant they tried to strip it, but they in essence stripped too much of it, And
No. It's not that they realized it didn't work. It's that they had so many online fans bitching about this movie.
The funny thing is, when Zach and I were talking about, so I've never seen Covenant, and I forget what you said. You're like, yeah, when David kisses David, and I was like,
no, David,
that's a joke,
they blow
right?
each other's flutes,
Yeah,
they sure
'Cause
do.
He asked me if David gets gay. And I'm like, yeah, of course he does.
Yeah, he does.
And I was like, are you doing a bit? And he was like,
Nope.
no, he does. And I looked it up and I was like, oh shit. So watching that scene out of context was very
The
bad.
movie I wanted after this was the prologue they put out on YouTube. That's what I wanted for the next movie.
Because that has Shaw in it, too.
It was Shaw and David, and it was supposed to be their discovery together. We were supposed to see that, and we skipped it.
Did Numi Rapace, is she in it?
Well, so here's the thing.
Yeah,
she's in it in a hologram, but when we actually meet her again in the film, she's already a corpse that David has dissected.
Yeah. She is in the prologue part, though, which is very much worth watching.
But it's not in the movie. You have to go to YouTube to watch it.
Yes. I you know what? Let it live in my mind, okay? Let me make it. Let me have it.
Yeah,
It's canon. It's canonical.
I get it. Honestly, I think a big part of my issue with Covenant is I hate how dirty it does Elizabeth Shaw.
Yes.
It really fucks over that character, and I hate that we don't get to see we just get a body. In
she is a character that is willing to let go of any life that she already lost all of her most important parts of life, right? She's willing to completely forgo ever going back to Earth again in search of answers, and that is a character worth following for a bit. And they just don't give that to us.
I find her so much more compelling than the Catherine Waterston character in that movie, whose only personality trait is, oh my god, my husband James Franco died.
Okay, well, tell you what, we got a whole episode on it if folks want to hear us talk about it. So. Okay, so we're still in this tomb with all of these canisters. We realize, hey, they seem to be sweating and changing. Oh, it's because we opened a fucking door and the atmosphere has altered. Also, there's a giant silica storm coming, so we bag the head. We learn that we've got about 15 minutes to get back to the ship.
Wait, but what do y'all think of the clear, like, mural, 3D mural of an alien queen on the wall here?
I think that's all the alien you needed in this movie.
Well, but where does that come from?
Deeper lore. I don't know. Something to explain outside of this movie.
There you go. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that because it kind of doesn't make sense if that's the engineers. Technically, the xenomorphs haven't happened yet, right?
Well, but what Zach just said, though, they've done the experiments, presumably, before this movie started, because that's another thing, too, is like, they are running away from this thing because they lose control of this bioweapon. And granted...
they already know to be afraid of it.
Yes, and the bioweapon is what creates the xenomorph. So we can infer that this goo made a squid monster that therefore facehuggered engineer and made a xenomorph, blah, 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 blah. There you go. That's what it is.
Yeah. Which again is kind of like, oh, so this isn't the origin story. This is just an origin story that we are seeing.
Yes.
So like, that's what, have you guys seen the first Annabelle movie?
Yeah.
I promise this will be relevant.
Okay.
That's what bothers me about that is that it's like, this is a prequel. It's Annabelle the origin, and it's absolutely not. She's just already there.
Right.
And so like, what is that fucking thing Judge Judy says? Don't piss on my leg and tell me it, like, don't tell me it's a prequel and it's not a prequel. Like, I actually like that this movie is kind of not, but I hate that it was mostly billed that way. Even if Ridley Scott's saying, no, it's not really, that is how it was like promoted.
Okay, but Annabelle Creation is like the best movie in that trilogy.
He wasn't saying it isn't. He just says that he didn't like the way it was marketed.
Yes.
I mean, I think this is the problem with making these big franchise IP in a day and date where literally everything that happens is noteworthy on every website, right? Like, because these creators are constantly having to either do damage control because misinformation is getting out, or they have to clarify because everywhere they go, people say, so what's happening with that Annabelle prequel movie? What's happening with the Alien prequel?
Yeah. Yeah, and like, I mean, that even happened with the Sarah Michelle Gellar show Wolfpack, where it was like billed as like, oh, it's like a wolf. It's like a Teen Wolf sequel series, and the creator had to be like, "It is not. It is not.
It has nothing to do with that."
Yeah.
Well, but God, and that's an issue with the property's marketing department, and and specifically with those. I mean, I'm not saying go rewatch Wolfpack because I haven't seen it. I've heard it's bad, but with something like this, it's where a rewatch will maybe help you because then you're like, okay, I know what the movie actually is now, what the marketing told me it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which unfortunately is like the easiest way to process films or TV shows. But of course, you have to be willing to take on that workload of watching things second times, third times, and so on.
I will say, I was surprised this movie was not 2.5 hours long because I remembered it being 2.5 hours long, and it's a flat 2.
A positive thing I'll say. Oh, I just raised my hand in real life because I was like, oh, good, I have something necessary.
me, pick me.
I do think this movie, even though it is...
It flies by, right?
Yes, I think it doesn't... The beginning's a little slow, but I think that's fine for a beginning.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think especially, like, I was like, oh shit, we only have... I think at one point I said something to Zach. I was like, we're already at the abortion scene? I was like, oh, yeah.
Like, once we hit...
35 minutes
once we hit the Vickers just incinerating Holloway, from there to the end... It's like
all action.
That.
Which,
they don't stop.
And that's like the halfway point of the movie. I think it's an hour when that starts happening. And it's like, oh, we have an hour left, and we just fly to the credits.
Yeah. Guess what? We are nowhere near that point. So we're gonna pick up the
Oh my god. You're gonna have to abbreviate some things, Joe.
Okay, so we have this dramatic race back to Prometheus. Shaw briefly makes sure that she gets the head, and Holloway gets really mad at her. There's actually deleted scenes where they get into more of like a spat about what she was willing to do to protect this head. And I think it does flesh out some of her character about, you know, yes, she will do whatever it takes. And you can see David making that kind of connection, you know, oh, she's sort of like me in that I will do whatever it takes to achieve.
But that also probably gives fuel to his answer to David later, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Milburn and Fifield are ordered to stay in the pyramid. This is something I've never understood, but yes, they are still there. Everybody else is back on the ship.
Wait, I'm sorry, what? Because there's literally a storm happening outside. They can't get out of there.
But they left before everybody else.
Yeah.
They got lost. Oh, but that's the thing. They have mapping balls, but they still got lost.
Yes.
You just answered your own question because that does bother me.
You know what? Just because you got pups doesn't mean you know how to use them.
But no, because they found out that one of the balls had a glitch in it because it's stuck at a door, and they just don't make it there. David makes it there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a moment where Dr. Ford and Shaw work with the head. Really creepy imagery as they're trying to activate it, and it's opening its eyes and moving its mouth, and then it just explodes on them.
This is gross.
Very gross.
Love it.
But also, I am totally with everybody who backs out of that room before they even start doing anything, because that thing is how old, and you're just randomly performing an experiment on it? Like,
that's this movie's horror adjacent, you know? I don't think it's a particularly scary, like, the movie's not even trying to scare you. It's a lot of the ideas that scare me in this movie, but honestly, it's these unknown again, like, fucking with this head, and I'm like, get out of the fucking room! It's gonna, like, radiate all of you.
But, I mean, it like, bring it back to real world, right? Like, if you found, you know, the head of somebody from way back when, and it was completely, like, they found bodies that are preserved, right?
And the first thing we do is excavate them and
like,
try
but
to
what
study
if you
them,
could?
right?
What if you could reanimate them? Right, like you would be standing there, laser focused on what this body is going to do,
and what it's going to tell you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so the ones who are really in on this mission, like Shaw, she's not about to like back away from it.
No.
For me, that doesn't bother me. That tracks. Like, the joke with I remember one time my friends were over in the fire when I lived in Astoria, and the fire alarm went off, and we were joking like, oh, what if there was a real fire? And they're like, you would die because you'd be collecting all of your shit, not wanting to leave it behind. And I was like, yeah, I would. Yep. You're absolutely
That's
right.
me
I would be
too.
like, my computer, my action figures, my shoes, like
my movies.
I would not, yeah, like so I get that because like that's what she came there for. So I probably also might die in this like storm booby trap thing, like trying to get the thing I came for.
But what you wouldn't do is touch a clearly dangerous alien snake.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah. Can we talk about this creature design though? Like
I love it.
I appreciate that the goo is icky, but then when this vagina dentata snake phallus thing, to me, this creature design is so perfectly within the alien canon. Like, I love how it's crossing gender boundaries in its like design and aesthetic. And then when it opens up and Milburn is almost entranced by it, I'm just like, you know what? I know why this scene doesn't work for people because he's acting stupid, but I totally get how he would be so mesmerized because it's a brand new fucking species.
It also looks kind of cute.
I mean, it kind of does.
I'm not there. I don't think so.
I've critiqued their decisions, but I do agree with you. Like, I do think it makes sense that this scientist would be like...
He's a biologist, too.
Right. Like, would be like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like, that, for me, that bothers me more that they don't make it out first because it seems like it was just one straight tunnel.
Right.
That bothers me more than, like, him, like, being entranced by this because I do think... that makes sense, and I actually do think it leads to one of the like. There's a lot of gross moments, but I think this is like a horror.
This is scary. This sequence is so fucking good.
Honestly, what the only thing I'm missing from this scene is a POV shot from inside his helmet as this thing is inside his helmet. Watching it go down his throat is fucking terrifying. And then you have Fifield who goes face first into this black goo, which then melts his helmet onto his skull.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's almost cosmic horror, except that they're actually on a planet surface.
No, but, honestly, Joe, I didn't even think about that, but yes, because so much of this movie is about the unknown. And the problem, quote unquote problem, is that all these characters are fascinated by the unknown, whereas all of us viewers are like, no, you should
They need
be
a healthy
scared.
dose of get the fuck out of there. Yeah, so while all of this shit is happening, we're also like, this is technically, we're cross-cutting back and forth between stuff on the ship and stuff here. So we do get Yannick and Vickers hooking up. We also get David sort of doing his mind fuckery with Holloway and poisoning his drink with this single drop of black oily whatever the fuck.
Man, so, because they were filming this for PG-13 for most of the time, so if they knew they were filming this for an R rating, we'd get a sex scene here.
Yeah, I feel like we would have.
Yeah.
I read something that they did film, like, maybe like the end of a sex scene between Idris Elba and Charlize Theron.
Would watch.
Yeah, like I think she, like, there was something about like what she said about being nude in the movie, and then there's no nude scene, so it's like, where was it? Yeah,
this feels extremely underdeveloped. They actually have a whole sequence after she burns up Fifield in the deleted scenes where she talks about, like she's basically suffering from shock and a little bit of PTSD, and Yannick goes into like his background as like a military operative on another mission, and they have like this really important human moment, but they said that it was coming at a place in the film where, as we just said, the action is really ramping up and it's a race to the finish. So they thought it was great character work, but it killed the pacing of the film, so they cut it.
But see, though, that sounds really good. Like I have to go through these extra scenes, because that's something I would have loved, not even for Theron's character, but for Elba's character.
Oh, it's his scene too.
God.
and I do think with like, even though he's not in it that much, I do find him charming. Like I think because he's such a good actor.
He's Idris Elba, of course.
Oh, I thought you were like, no, not at all.
No, I fucking love Idris Elba.
He's hideous. Ew.
Yes, he's
That attractive
hideously
man, get him outta
attractive.
here.
That's the ew part. Okay, so I think one of the best shots in this movie is when Holloway wakes up in the morning and he checks his eye in the mirror, and you can see the little black sperm thing.
I hate eye stuff, so yeah, that like...
God, like it's because it's so quick, and his eyes aren't like completely bloodshot yet, but like you just see that flick of a worm tail come out of his eye, and it's just
It's horrifying.
It's so upsetting.
It's a nightmare, right? If that happened to you, you would be flipping your shit.
Well, and this is the place and the situation you do not want anything happening to you. You do not want to see any sort of like, you don't want to get anything on your skin. You don't want to get little things in your eyes. Nothing, right? Because everything is so foreign on this planet that it just is a nightmare.
And then the person who's like the owner of the ship will light you on fire.
Which is why he's like so scared to tell anybody and doesn't say it to anybody.
But I will say, though, because his infection is so fast. Like, this movie wastes no... Because in Alien, like, they bring on John Hurt, and he's got a thing on his head, and oh my god, like, we had to spend time studying it. No. This fucker gets infected, and he is, like, he's done.
And I feel like we even accelerate that more in Covenant, too, right?
Yes,
Like,
well, that's
people
what I
get
was gonna
infected
say.
with the spores, and they're just done.
Yeah.
It's the way to speed you, because we have to get sped up at some point, right? And so, like, him getting infected is the same as Covenant when they get infected, then speeding up the story and speeding up the action and creating that urgency. These are the two characters that create the urgency.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go back to the ship because we've got to collect Milburn and Fifield, but they're not responding. And of course, David ominously wishes everybody good luck. And he's off doing his own side project, discovering the alien bridge. He's looking at this holographic map of the cosmos, which I think I hesitate to say understated because I actually think it's quite spectacular, but I could see people saying like, oh, well, why does this matter? Why do we care about what David's off to the side doing?
That's
I don't think that if Chase, you were like, does Ian think that?
No,
Ian, what are you?
Ian, I don't. I feel like you think I'm attacked. I have got an out for you. I don't have an out for you.
No, I mean, I just know that I've been like, I'm trying not to be negative. I feel like I've been like too negative.
You're
so
a hater. It's okay to admit that.
So we barely have time to discover these bodies, and then that's when Holloway's infection really kicks in, and we're seeing dark veins. He's barely able to walk, so we are rushing back to Prometheus, and yeah, we don't really make it, because by the time he gets back to the ship, Vickers is ready for him, and he decides to martyr himself because he realizes he's so far gone.
And she's right.
Yeah.
And he does her a huge favor
is.
because she is right. And she, as the boss of this ship, cannot let him on because you don't know what that's going to spread into. If he's going to like throw up on the ground and then anybody who slips in it is going to, you just don't know. And this was the biggest risk that they all knew that they were taking going out into this foreign land and not knowing what is going to happen to you, right? And she was the only one that seemed to remember that.
Well, and what I love, again, so we mentioned, this is the scene that's lifted from Alien, right? Because in Alien, John Hurt gets the facehugger on, and they're like, bring him in. And so in this movie, we have Charlize Theron, the ostensible villain of the film, who is like, no, we're not bringing this fucker on. Whereas in Alien, that's Ripley who's making that decision. She is saying, do not bring this fucker onto this ship. And I love that parallel because we're like, oh, Shaw is the Ripley of this movie, when actually it's Vickers who has a lot of Ripley traits.
Would you call Shaw the Ripley of this movie? I don't know. Or I guess in terms of, your forefront character, right? But
Right.
I mean, it's every Alien movie that they have their characters that have little Ripley traits, right? And it is absolutely Vickers in this one.
Yeah, it almost feels like we're trying to divide our Ripley sensibilities, right? We're giving Shaw the majority of the screen time and most of the quote-unquote agency, but Vickers has a lot of Ripley's steeliness and her desire to survive at all costs.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the ending is a little bit disappointing, that it's like you want both of these women to effectively win because they're both right in a lot of ways.
Yes. And I mean, like you said, one of you said earlier, like she does have like, I love a Cordelia Chase, and like, but like that character's smart, right? Like that's what we like about those characters, that people like underestimate the fact that like, oh, because they're like biting and like fashionable and whatever, it's like, oh, well, then they're not smart enough to survive, but they are.
No, Meredith is focused on self-preservation. And unfortunately, in this movie, and many movies about people that are very much about self-preservation, it makes them the bad guy because they don't want to save other people. They focus on saving themselves first. And what I love about that is I'm calling her a villain, which I don't even mean to. To me, Meredith isn't even a villain. She's human. She wants to save herself.
Yeah. No. Well, and if she doesn't save herself, how is she going to help anybody else? How is she going to? If she's not there, she can't direct anybody. And
Zach, you're almost summarizing RuPaul.
I was going to say, if you can't save the Prometheus, how the hell are you going to save the rest of the galaxy?
Well, she's not just there to be the bitch, right? She's there. She has a purpose. She has a job, and she's going to take it seriously, right? She doesn't know these people.
She's the most relatable character in this movie.
She's there for the money. She wants to get home. She doesn't want any of the science nonsense.
If Idris Elba told me that they're going to crash the spaceship, then I might feel a sense of panic and need to get into an escape pod.
Or you just sit on his monster cock first. Wow.
She already did that. She already did it.
She wants to do it again.
She already did.
Look, if we're going to talk about sex, let's talk about the after effects, because we are up to this self-abortion baby, and I have never seen a back alley abortion quite like this before.
This is so good. Honestly, it's not even the abortion itself that gets me. It's where she's stitching herself up, and this thing is still flailing around in her tube.
There, yes.
It is her acting that just
she's fantastic in
me.
this scene.
The grunting, the like. I don't know, like, all of the perspiration on her, all of the shaking, all of her doubling over. When she doubles over, you feel it,
Yes. It's a really good physical performance from Rapace for the rest of the film, because she's hurting. Like, she literally gave herself surgery and then has to keep running and jumping and fighting.
You notice everybody keeps hitting her in the stomach right after this, too?
Yup.
Yeah.
But that's something that the Honest Trailer points out. It's like, and she will give herself a surgery that will hurt a lot when standing, except not running, jumping, or rappelling. And then it shows her, like, doing all these action things that are not hurting her. But when she's just standing there, she's like, oh!
But one of the things I notice is I never noticed it until this rewatch. She is constantly dosing herself with painkillers.
Yes,
You see her inject herself with these things about 6 or 7 times after this.
Yeah.
Basically until she loses it, right? Until it's out of her hand and she just can't anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so funny because, Alien is a fantastic film. It's a perfect film. But the scene that everyone remembers is the chestburster scene. And so I don't think and I prefer Aliens to Alien personally, but I don't think anything in any of these films matches the impact of the chestburster scene.
Right.
And I think this is the scene that comes the closest to it.
Yes. Absolutely.
No, I would still say the backburster in Covenant for me, but maybe that's just because they are so similar.
Okay, well, at this point in time,
Okay,
before
fair,
Covenant
fair.
comes out.
I don't know. Even with Covenant, I think of it. Even with the backburster, I think this is. Yeah. No, I think this is it. This is second to that.
The other thing I would like to do, just because we are recording this at a certain political moment in time, I think it's very interesting that Dr. Shaw is basically told by medical professionals that she's not able to look into her own care, so she takes it into her own fucking hands and gets herself an abortion.
Ooh, and to have it be a woman of faith, too.
Well, there's different ways to look at it, right? Because if we're looking at David as sort of the queer one, and Elizabeth Shaw as the, I don't know, quote unquote conservative. He's telling her, no, you have to be pro-life, right? And I think that's a really interesting sort of like flipping it on.
It's a subversion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's so funny. As many times as I've referred to the scene as the self-abortion scene, I've never been like, all right, she's the quote unquote, as you said, that conservative one of the group. Even though I think she would love us faggots.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Meredith would have more fun with us, though.
No,
This is true.
Sounds good.
We would kiki with Vickers, and then, we'd go to brunch with Shaw.
Yeah. Vickers would have the Coke.
Oh, fuck. Yes, she would have the Coke.
Oh, look at how she treats her body. She gets up and she does push-ups.
Because
Those
she's been
people always
doing
do Coke.
cocaine
Yeah.
at night.
Have you never been to LA?
I have not.
It's part of David's care instructions for Vickers when she's in cryo sleep. It's
my
just
God.
a little bit of wide on the nose.
Ian, what you're saying is you partake in cocaine frequently, so you're a cokehead.
Oh my God. Moving on. So this...
Are you saying I have abs? Thank you.
Ooh.
You mean the abs like the engineers in this movie? I wish.
Jesus Christ. I was shocked to learn it's 2 different people. I thought it was just the same guy. But yeah, it's 2 different actors.
The abs are like totally fake though, right? Those are just like body prosthetics.
Yeah, those are
I
costumes.
have to
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
So this, to me, is the definition of a studio note, this next moment. This is when Fifield returns. The sequence is fine. It's exciting. We get a bunch of people that don't matter and didn't have character names who just die unceremoniously. But this feels like, can we put another action scene into the film?
And we didn't need it.
I like
we
it.
had.
I like it.
We didn't. We had Holloway, and that felt very. Ian, and you had pointed out that you thought Holloway and this were like the same thing, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
They are kind of the same thing already. And right, if you cut out this, it's like do with or do without. It doesn't really matter. But without, I think the action still stays at a steady pace.
I think we needed to see more faceless crew members die because it doesn't make sense that there's no one else on the ship.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I do think we needed like a massacre.
like
to,
why aren't
be
any
like, yeah,
other
it's only
crew
them.
members objecting to them?
We're not killing 15 people. We're only sacrificing 3.
wait. So would this scene be fixed for all of you if it was Holloway who didn't burn to death and is somehow still alive and becomes a zombie?
Yes.
That would have been, I think, more interesting and maybe more impactful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But then you needed the moment with with Shaw.
You had to have the emotional moment with
witnessing
Shaw.
it, yes. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I don't think it'd be as impactful if she's not there.
Yeah. Unless she can see how far gone he is. Like, if she was able to see all of this and then he ends up getting burned and destroyed and then she faints and then we go into the abortion
What
scene.
if she is like currently doubling over as he is doubling over? He turns into this big thing. She's trying to hold him back, but she can't really like physically stand up. And as they incinerate him and after he kills everybody, like they have to pull her away and take her to medical bay.
But that's why I think if we had Holloway return and this was his scene too, we would have to have Shaw be the one to kill him.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know if she would ever get to that point.
Yeah.
Does she? She doesn't kill anyone in this movie.
I mean, she does kill Vickers by not telling her to run to the side.
She really says nothing.
Run, bitch.
Just so that queer can
Meredith!
She's like, well, stay blessed. I'm rolling out of the way.
Stop, drop, and roll, Meredith.
Oh my god. So, speaking of truly horrific things in this film, this is when we discover that Waylon, aka the Guy Pearce character, is actually still alive, and he has the most disgusting looking feet you've ever seen.
The worst thing you've seen in this movie. There's not a thing worse than that.
I want to hear from the foot fetishes. Did you get turned on by this?
Ian?
Yeah.
Was Mr. McPhee buying this?
Oh my god, we're so mean to Ian.
Listen, I actually thought you were going to say this felt like a studio note.
The feet?
Because I no.
It could be. Who was on this project? Let's look.
Like, I feel like Guy Pearce feels like it feels like an addition, an afterthought into the movie. And I don't think we needed him. I think it could have been like, this has been Meredith's plan all along. She's been waiting for this to happen. Her father told her she had to meet the dumb engineer guys. Sure.
Right.
And like, she begrudgingly goes because that's what the mission is. I don't think we needed him because he dies like 7 minutes later.
But so Ian, I'm not even disagreeing with your frustration on this because I kind of agree with you. This feels like a remnant of Spates' script, which was a direct Alien prequel that we kept after Lindelof got a hold of it. I have more of a struggle finding meaning in why it matters that Vickers is his daughter, because it doesn't really come to anything outside of the fact where it's like, okay, so this is why she's kind of a bitch, I guess, because her dad sucks. But it doesn't really add. But honestly, my bigger issue is the fact that, like, I don't understand why we have Guy Pearce playing this role when we could have just cast an elderly actor. And, you know, this is coming in the wake of the Pearl and X and Maxine stuff, but I would argue that at least with that, they had an idea in mind that they were going to do a prequel. Yeah. This doesn't make any sense why we have Guy Pearce playing this role.
I have to imagine that, like, they had him in mind for the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Zach. Actually, you may be 100% right.
I think so.
Wait, but I do remember, I'm Googling it right now. I do remember reading that he had filmed a lot more of like the hologram that we see. Like there actually was more of that, and that's why they cast him. But then it was mostly cut.
Well, I think it is. I think the prologue to Covenant, like the opening scene, is Guy Pearce making David.
It is, yeah.
It is wild they got those actors that come back for a fucking YouTube video.
Well, this is in the movie. This one is like the beginning of the movie.
This is how Covenant opens, is more about like how Waylon decided to make David in for what. But it honestly feels like it could have been filmed for this movie and then used to open that film.
But Ian, to your point though, I do think they probably told Noomi Rapace that it was going to be in the movie. And then they did not put it in the movie.
But I do think they need him in this because we're talking creation,
right?
And David needs to see his creator snuffed out so easy like that, right?
And I get that, but I feel like, why was it a secret that he was on the ship?
Yeah, that feels like one of those things where it's meant to be twisty, right? Like,
we didn't need the
Waylon's
twist.
Been alive this whole time, but it doesn't have that kind of impact in the actual film.
Well, even when she's like, okay, beat, father.
When he plays the music.
Hold it.
We have stacked, like, reveals too, right? Like, because I'm pretty sure, like, you're supposed to think Vickers is probably a robot or whatever.
Oh, because he does ask her, "Are you an android?"
Yeah, and then the reveal is that she's not. No, the reveal is that she's the daughter. Yes, the reveal is that he's on board. Right? It's like we don't need stacked on stacked on stacked twists. We just didn't. We could have, if we're gonna go with Vickers as the daughter, do that from the beginning, and it doesn't really affect the plot at all.
I do agree with you, though, Zach. I don't think Waylon himself is that important, but I think he's important to what it tells us about Vickers and more specifically David. Like, it is really setting this idea that, oh, we've got father figures that disappoint us, which anticipates what Shaw is going to go through, but also it sets David up to say, oh, I am superior to these people. Like, because I'm not human doesn't mean that I'm worse than them. I'm actually better.
And David knows that, and that's why he leads him to his certain death, right? He knows that he is going to be, that he's nothing, and that he is going to be snuffed out, and David wants to actively see this.
So question for you folks then. So they end up going back to the ship. Shaw hatches this kind of not great plan with Yannick that we're not going to let these weapons of mass destructions back on board the ship. Okay, we're in agreement, but we get over there. We reanimate this cryostasis engineer who is played by Ian White this time. Do you think it's surprising that we don't get alien closed captions so that we can understand what David is saying and vice versa?
Kind of like it without.
Well, did you guys... There's
a version, right?
I don't fully understand because I'm not that smart, but like I was looking up and it's like they use some kind of old dialect that
Sanskrit.
is actually real. Yeah, and there actually is like he just asks him exactly what Guy Pearce says.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I wasn't sure if we were meant to infer there was some sort of nefarious conversation going on.
No, I absolutely read this as exactly what Ian just said. I feel so robbed of an answer here, but again, I feel like that's the point.
Right.
I guess I'm just like, I don't know. I've watched a lot of Twin Peaks. Like, I don't know. I get it.
I don't need answers all the time.
No, but
Yeah.
because the answer is simple, right? The answer is that they don't view humans as, I'm going to say they don't view humans as people, but like they don't view humans as anything that's significant whatsoever. They're lab rats. We are lab rats to the engineers, and that's it. And unfortunately, that is an unsatisfying answer for anyone seeking meaning in life.
Yeah.
I guess like, it's not even that I don't. That feels like Ridley Scott and Damon Lindelof, like they're in their Drag Race finale and they're pulling off their wigs and glitter's flying out and they're like, aha, look how good we are. And it's like,
I think it's them saying, what would you do if you found out that your life had no fucking meaning or purpose? Because that is what this movie tells you.
Well, so I don't mind that, but it's the fact that we do nothing with that. The way we go with that is that Shaw is like, yeah, let's find more of these people. And it's like, but we got it. The answer's nothing.
There was supposed to be a grander plan, right? Like we have to remember that. There was this grander plan being set up. And unfortunately, we didn't see all of that plan realized. And so now we have this that does feel like, okay, well, what? Why?
Yeah.
I can definitely appreciate how it can feel a little unsatisfying. I think if only because it's incredibly confronting to see this $130 million summer action blockbuster say, oh, well, the answer is this Debbie Downer, nothing really matters. And that's very unusual. As an audience, we're like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's anti-summer blockbuster.
Yeah. But I can understand that it also sort of feels like, well, wait, so what was the purpose of the film then? Like, we didn't get any kind of catharsis, which is the point, but it doesn't mean... I can understand why people would find it unsatisfying.
Oh, again, I found it unsatisfying. But again, in the 11 years since this film's released, I'm like, oh, but that's the point.
It's the point.
I mean, yeah, and like the message of like focus on the meaning of your life rather than the meaning of life,
right.
You know?
Right.
She could have very well stayed on Earth and lived a really nice life.
Yeah, she could have gone back to Earth and been like, look, I just saved all you fuckers, so I'm going to do something else with my time to make your lives better. Instead, I'm going to be selfish and go look for demand an answer from our creators.
She deserves it.
I mean, she's not incredibly selfish because she still does make sure that this payload doesn't get back to Earth, right?
Right.
Like, so, Shaw flees after the engineer kills a bunch of people, and then he tries to take off, and she deliberately messages Yannick and says, hey, I can't do anything because I'm trapped in the middle of some kind of, like, earthquake. Can you please take care of this?
And Charlize Theron is like, what?
Goodbye.
I will live in space.
Just like, give me the fucking pod. I felt nothing for you, Idris Elba.
It's too funny. You were a great lay, but now I've got to go. Sorry.
And she, listen, she didn't even because she didn't have time to sit and think, right? But what happens if you escape and you're on this, because it's 2 years? She has 2 years of food and water and all this. Right. Okay, what if nobody comes for you? So you just... Yeah,
die.
But she doesn't have time to think about that.
She's the head of she's like the CEO of a major company, so
she's going to page them on her Apple Watch? Like what?
But that's the risk you take, Zach. You can either die right now or maybe die 2 years from now.
It's just, I think that's a really good moment. I think she does the best job as fear of death,
She's
it's
Charlize Theron's best performance, hands down, this moment right here.
They're Oscars.
The thing I like about it is that, she's annoyed by it.
Yeah.
yes. What the fuck are you doing? This is my ship.
She's like, ugh. As she's running away, she literally
So
groans in
relatable.
annoyance.
So
I
relatable.
fucking love that. Yeah.
She's doing that thing she doesn't want to have to do. It's like when you have to get up early so that you can go and run an errand. Ugh, come on.
Yeah.
Joe, I have never gotten up early to go run an errand. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Vickers has.
Trace,
absolutely
I can feel your, finger quotes as you were saying.
What is an
quote unquote.
errand that you're... Wait, Trace, you got to do it like Charlize would do it. I have never gotten up and run an errand.
We gotta have the Amadeus music come in when you say it, though.
Okay, so she gets out. Yeah, we've got Chance and Ravel and Yannick dying by suicide, destroying this alien horseshoe, which immediately crashes back down to the Earth.
An alien horseshoe?
And then we got our two ladies making a brave run for it, and everybody just goes, go left or go right, ladies.
Again, my last honest trailer reference. It's just when they're introducing the cast and they're like, we have this, and then it goes to Charlize Theron and it goes, and an idiot woman who can only run in straight lines.
So rude.
I just love
Don't do
idiot
Vickers
woman.
dirty like that. But I again, I love slasher movies, so I'm very forgiving of people not fully okay, yeah, maybe whenever people are like, oh, that was stupid, and it's like, no, but you wouldn't do that. You don't know what you would do if a monster was chasing you.
Okay, wait. I have an answer for this, and it's not going to be a satisfying one, but my answer is this. You're in the moment as Charlize Theron, and you know that running to the left or the right is taking up time as this thing is closing down on you, because, and so they're very close to where this thing is, and so I believe that Charlize Theron was thinking, if I turn, it's going to hit me.
Diagonal.
Yeah, just do
Well, okay, but if I turn diagonally, it's going to hit me.
No.
Here's the thing. In 2094, people can't run diagonally
It's
anymore.
geometry.
It is
geometry.
It just is a thing in the movie, and it's funny to watch.
just
It's
is.
funny to make fun of, but it's a thing in the
It
movie.
is.
It's a thing that takes her character out, and it just is what it is.
I wonder if it's a statement, though, of how, she is so... Because we make a point earlier how she's so prepared, right? She has this fucking lifeboat. She has this amazing suite. She is ready to survive at all costs. And what is her undoing is ultimately a really stupid fucking decision. To me, it's ironic, and that's what lets me overlook this.
There you go.
Or she's trying to be straight so hard that, she can't run in any other direction but straight.
There you go. I love
Wound
that.
so tightly.
I guess to me, I say this so much, but it reminds me of Gale Weathers. It's yeah, she wasn't punished for being looking out for herself and I do feel like Vickers, if she had survived and it was her and Shaw, I think it would have boosted, because I do love this end. I think all of this is happened so fast and so entertaining, and for me, that is the only we'll put a pin in that and come back to that for the last 40 minutes, because it's also enjoyable, but then I'm okay with some of the other stupid decisions while I'm watching it, but that's the only one that in the theater, and I never have that reaction where I was why the fuck isn't she running sideways?
Yeah. I will say, though, that there are certain types of deaths that really disturb me, and someone getting crushed, I find deeply upsetting. So even though, yes, it's a really stupid decision, having her literally lay down on the ground,
Yes.
no, and then I'm glad we don't see her get squashed, but I have this image of Charlize Theron literally popping like a balloon.
Oh.
Lord.
It's also, it's the inevitability, right? Like, there's a moment where Shaw is running and the ground is separating so that the alien spaceship can fly out. And she makes this desperate jump and she just barely makes it. And it's those moments where, you know, they're standard action movie cliche, but that kind of stuff, people, you know, nearly getting crushed or making a last minute escape. I like the way that it makes me feel. Like it gets my adrenaline rushing. But yeah, I think it's just because we actually like Vickers and we like Charlize Theron, except for you, Zach. So we don't want this fate for her. And it feels stupid for a character that we think would have gotten out of this.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, they should have just taken her out in a different way then, right? Because the point is, at the end, Shaw and David, they could have easily had her pod, like, blow up mid.
She could have just been crushed when it falls to the ground and then
maybe
have
she's
Shaw
like stuck in her
run.
pod, right? And then she can't get out. And it rolls over her.
Right.
I was gonna say it would make sense for the engineer to take her out, but no, that's her dad's dad.
No.
That's the engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost appreciate the irony that I mentioned earlier, though, that it's something so stupid that takes her out, because she is a very smart character.
Yeah. So you would be forgiven for mistaking this as the climax of the movie. It is not. Shaw has to get into this escape pod, and then this is where we learn that the engineer is actually coming for her, and we get this showdown between Vagina Dentata Giant versus the engineer, and I really like this.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a close-up of Vagina Dentata's mouth that is one of the most creepy things I've seen in a movie in a very long time. It looks it's a giant face hugger. That's what this is.
It is. Yeah.
I love this.
Well, there's a moment where there's a shot where he's got his like legs braced on either side of the door, and like it's coming at his crotch too, and that just sends shivers down. But then he goes for his face, and face hugs him, and you know all the good stuff that comes with that.
This thing rapes him hardcore.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very disturbing. I mean, it's always disturbing to see something go in someone's mouth when they have not given consent. But in this case, it's because he's so big. You know, this thing is also very, very large at this point. Who knows how it got so big? But it's just the image of him struggling so mightily. Like you said, Zach, he's got his legs braced against the fucking door. He's massive. And then the minute that thing gets the pincer into his mouth, he just goes completely limp. And it ends up being like a lover's embrace as this thing just crawls on top of him. It's nasty.
But also not the end of the movie.
It's still not the end of the movie. Mm-mm. So Shaw has once again bailed. She's really good at knowing when to get the fuck out of Dodge. So she's like, well, I guess I'll just die outside. This is when David bids her, hey, you could come, and there's more ships in here. So she ends up rappelling down. She goes in and she says, I will do this, but you have to promise to take me to the aliens' home world so that I can get answers from daddies. And he says, all right, stupid bitch, let's fly off.
Well, you have to imagine that he probably knew she was going to say something like that, right? Like, he wasn't wanting to go
He's
home.
read her like a book.
Absolutely.
He knows exactly what to do to manipulate her.
Well, and it's really her fault for trusting his fucking ass, because as we will find out in 5 years, he will dissect her fucking ass.
I really wanted...
Is it that he kills her or that he dissects her when she's dead?
So here's the thing.
It's just so unceremonious.
Well, I thought that he killed her and then dissected her. The Wikipedia summary for Alien Covenant says that she dies upon impact when they land on this planet, and then he dissects her. I
don't buy that.
I don't buy that either.
I don't think the film supports that.
Yeah. I think it's heavily implied that he kills her.
He was waiting to put her in cryosleep. She goes into cryosleep, and then he does what he needs to, right? And she, in essence, becomes an alien queen. Not like living, but she is like, you know, the first of that species.
Yeah, she basically burst the first xenomorph. But, like, it's all off screen. Like, it happens before Covenant starts.
But see, we deserved a gay and a fag hag movie, you know, on a road trip, spaceship trip.
Yes. I get why we didn't get that, but yeah, and that's what we were saying earlier, where it's like it feels like there's a movie missing between Prometheus and Covenant because just because.
It's because we needed to get to aliens.
Yeah. And granted, if you want aliens, Covenant has them in spades.
Oh yeah.
They're all CGI, but they are there.
But they're not even those aliens. They're different aliens. They're not even
protomorphs or whatever.
Yeah.
Neomorphs.
Yeah. Well, and that takes us into the final scene of this film, which is that we do get to see one come out of the engineer, and this looks very different from a lot of the other aliens that we have seen, a lot of the other xenomorphs. So what do you folks think of this biped that has a kind of like weird double retractable jaw?
I do want to say, I think that's what, when we talked about the alien queen being in the like engineer room, that's what bothers me about it. Because for me, because it looks different, this feels like, oh, we're just starting with
this is the first one.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to tell us this is the first one. So then it's like, well, then why the fuck is a queen painted on the wall?
Well, I always wrote off the different appearance of this thing because it was a different kind of facehugger doing it to an engineer, not a human being. Even though we have established that we share the same DNA as the engineers.
Right.
But yeah, I almost take the mural from earlier. Like, I don't believe this is the very first neomorph xenomorph, whatever the fuck of its kind. I believe that it's happened before because they were doing this was their planet to do experiments on with this bioweapon. Right. So I just think maybe, I don't know, they saw that they birthed one or more of these things and then killed them. And maybe, I don't know, drew a mural of like what they envisioned for what this race to look like. I'm clearly connecting a lot of dots that are not existent here, but that's just what I'm doing.
Either that or it's just, hey, it's an Easter egg for people who were observant and looking at a certain part of the screen at the right time.
Well, somebody said earlier, right, that it's an origin story, not that origin story.
Yeah.
Right. Not gonna sell you on it, Ian.
On that note, that is I was gonna say Alien Covenant. That is Prometheus. Zach and Ian, final thoughts on Prometheus.
Okay. I love this movie. I think when you think too much on it, when you're sitting and thinking and trying to connect dots, it can drive you a little crazy, and seeing that potential. But when you just sit there and you're able to turn your mind off just a little bit, it's a really enjoyable watch. We didn't even get into all of the queer coding in it, but, David, incredibly queer coded. Meredith Vickers as the rejected child, incredibly quear coded. All of the Ripley projections onto different characters in this movie, the idea of creation and the creation rebelling and forging their own path, very, very queer. And it's, I don't know, I like Ridley Scott stuff because of that, because there always seems to be a little bit of that sort of drama in there.
I think it's like very, cinematography is beautiful. I think the movie looks incredible. I cannot say it. I cannot like praise it enough for how it looks. Like, I think everything you said makes sense about like how they had to light it and whatever, because they shot it in 3D. That makes so much sense because everything looks so crisp in this movie. And I think for me, I like it better. Not that I like it better than Aliens, but I like the idea of something that's like more Star Trek looking, having a horror thing happen to it, where it's like so pretty. And then when the blood's spilling, it makes it look almost more horrific because it's like, oh, this was a beautiful set, but now that person's guts are on the wall. So I do really like that. I just feel like it's like the beautiful gowns of like the Alien series where it's like, yeah, everything looks pretty. Everything looks great. The action scenes are so fun, but like, I don't know. I'm less forgiving if it's like, well, it falls apart if you think about it. Like, for me, I'm like, well, it shouldn't.
Right.
And that's like what bothers me. And it doesn't bother me as much if I don't notice it in the movie, but I noticed it in the theater watching this. So that's like, I'm a little bit more forgiving if it's like, oh, afterwards I was like, well, those plot points were stupid. But if I'm noticing them being stupid, then it's a problem for me. And that's the only reason, that's like my biggest, why I like waver back and forth, because I do think this is a well-made, well shot, well acted, like everything looks fucking great and it's enjoyable to watch. I don't hate it by any means. And I had fun watching it with Zach earlier. I was glad that I had to revisit it for this, because it was like, oh, I probably wouldn't have revisited this. Now I'm rambling too much, but I'm trying to say that I both like it and dislike it.
I think that's fair. It's interesting that both of you are saying, oh, I think this movie is very enjoyable, because I do like this movie. I don't find this movie particularly enjoyable, and I actually don't really like rewatching this movie, because I actually find a lot of this movie very upsetting. But that is by design, but it's because this movie is so philosophical. It's asking so many big questions and not always answering them, but it's having these conversations, which is why the little minutia of silly, quote unquote, silly things like character motivations and character decisions. It's like the movie is above all that for me, at least in my viewing experience, because I'm like, oh, but I am so fascinated by what this movie is implying by these questions that it's imposing.
Right.
I'm not saying that excuses any of the issues that people have with it. I get them. It's just that the grand scheme of things is bigger for me than those little things. Now I'm rambling. I don't know. I like this movie. I respect this movie. I admire this movie. I think it's a very ambitious movie, flaws and all. Right. I don't have a desire to jump back and rewatch it anytime soon, because, as I said, I do find this very upsetting and quite, Joe, you said fatalistic, I think. And that's not something that I particularly enjoy watching, even though I do think it's very effective.
Yeah. And honestly, I agree with all of that. I can understand why people have complicated feelings about this. For me, as someone who honestly made a large part of their upbringing about alien movies, like my sister and I used to watch these movies all the time. So it was a huge component of my teen years. I never thought that we were going to get more. And I enjoy Alien versus Predator, but I don't think that they're particularly great movies.
Right.
They're fun movies, but, to see the franchise come back to more like heady ideas, really carefully constructed, whether you like it or not, the things that they're doing, this film has ambition and design. And I think that's really exciting. And I don't think it's entirely well executed. There's still a lot of messy shit. I think we really zoned in on it. It's in the differences between the two different screenplays. Mm-hmm. And I think you can see both of them at various points in the film. But overall, for me, this is an enjoyable film. I do enjoy revisiting it. I like a lot of these characters. I wish we had more of them. I would take a mini-series, all that stuff.
Ooh, yeah.
My final point is I do want to give a shout out to Janty Yates, who is the costume designer for this film, because them blue spaceships are...
very nice.
They look real good on these hot actors.
The space suits or spaceships?
Sorry, space suits.
Do you know if that's the same costume designer for the next one? Because David in the white suit is real nice at the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you like Fassbender, you get to see a lot of Fassbender.
Well, I think, what is his line? He's like, you do the fluting, I'll do the fingering.
Yeah, Ian, when you watch Covenant, you have to come back and tell us if you like it more or less or just differently.
I'm curious. I'm so curious. But
Zach, do you think I'll like it?
Don't.
You'll probably like it more than this.
It's because you can't turn your brain off, but it's if you can, it'll be fun.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But Zach, you haven't seen the second Alien vs. Predator.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Oh, because that's pretty stupid, and I enjoy it because I feel like it knows what it is.
But Alien vs. Predator 2 is a sequel to a stupid movie called Alien vs. Predator. Alien Covenant is a stupid movie that's a sequel to Prometheus.
Fair.
Anyway, okay. Well, that is Prometheus. Ian and Zach, first of all, thank you for coming on this long journey with us. Y'all's input has been awesome for this. I love all the different points of view. But let everyone know, where can they find you on social media and talk about also like your podcasts?
Alrighty, if you want to search My Bloody Judy, you'll find us. We are on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to search me, you can probably just search Zach Garcia or Adventures of Zach and B, and you'll find me also.
And if you want to find me, I am at Ian X Carlos. And if you want to find the other podcast that I host and Zachary sometimes co-hosts when I bully him into doing it, that's Slayerfest 98, and we cover Buffy and Marvel stuff.
Nice.
There you go. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd at HorrorQueers to keep track of all the films we've covered. Go to our YouTube channel to check out our interviews with horror filmmakers, as well as our what we're looking forward to every month in the horror landscape. Go chat with other listeners at our Facebook Horror Queers group. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. We're almost done with April, so go sign up now. And at the highest tier, you can get 235 hours of extra content. Our new episodes this month include a discussion on films with make or break endings, the latest remake of Children of the Corn, the new horror comedy Renfield, Amazon Prime's TV show Swarm, and an audio commentary on House of a Thousand Corpses for its 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
Joe, what are we discussing next week?
Well, we're going to take it back to the 80s to talk about one of my favorite queer-coded relationships, Trace, but also space slugs. So we're going to talk about Night of the Creeps.
A movie that everyone proclaims is queer, but every fan of that movie from the 80s is like, no, you're reaching.
Yep, exactly.
I love this movie. We actually covered this in our article series before the podcast began, so go check that out. But also go see the movie because it's awesome. But until next week, we can cross out Prometheus.
Indeed, and cross out Horror Queers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kenneth Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.